to see you interact with people that you haven't met before. So if you feel really close and connected with everybody at your table, maybe invite you all to continue enjoy your breakfast and maybe connect with another table. But get to know some of the participants, their strengths, and what Hummingly Well helps us really talk about are burnout signs, ways to take care of ourselves in addition to the way we take care of our community. Because when we consider ourselves to be contributing to the whole community preparedness, our well-being is critical. We need to show up with our best selves, and that requires taking care of ourselves as well. So the hope is we'll give you a quick introduction to the Hummingly Well cards, but we do have just a couple of other quick morning announcements before we introduce that activity. We just wanted to preview it to you. Sadie, did you want to announce anything about our door prizes?
Yes, this is Sadie. Sorry, I'm in a weird spot. We have door prizes. If you don't know what the, if you haven't checked in at the front desk, that's where you'll, not the front desk. Registration table, thank you. That's where all of the door prizes will be. So go and see if your name's over there. We anonymously put you in there, and so everybody could win. All right, enjoy the prizes also.
Absolutely. And we also wanted to give a quick shout out. Somebody asked me yesterday and I didn't know the answer, but we found out that yesterday we had up to 44 people joining us virtually for this conference. So I hope you feel like half again as many people being part of this conversation, especially as we did the interactive sessions. We had a really positive opportunity to use kind of hybrid technology in order to have those questions and interactions. And we really deeply appreciate the folks who were able to join us that way. And we hope you all continue to have a really wonderful second day of the conference and participate in the way that engages your communities as well.
Amy, I'm sorry to disrupt. We need to turn in our Spanish interpretation.
Oh, absolutely.
If we could go ahead and have them introduce our how to get into Spanish, please.
Absolutely. So once again, we will invite our Spanish language interpreters who are also joining us again virtually and supporting all parts of the conference to offer their statement and their instructions about how to access that Spanish language interpretation.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. My name is Andrea. I'm here with my colleague, Valentina.
Spanish interpretation, will you please stop? And let's go ahead and try it again.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me? Good morning. Can you hear me?
Is she talking?
Yes, I am. Good morning.
All right.
All right. Good morning. Can you hear me? In the room. All right, thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Andrea. I'm here with my colleague, Valentina. We're here with the Community Language Cooperative, and we are here because you guys have committed to practice language justice and create a space where everybody can communicate in the way that they feel more comfortable in. So today we are going to provide simultaneous interpretation in English and in Spanish. And this is going to happen in Zoom. Once we start the interpretation, after I'm done saying this message in Spanish, for those of you who are in Zoom, you're going to see a globe that is going to pop up at the bottom of your screen. Or if you are on your phone or tablet, you're going to see 3 little dots or where it says more. And right there, you're going to be able to select your language. If you are fully bilingual in English and in Spanish, you don't have to select any of those languages. We do ask everybody that it is best practice to speak at a conversational pace Stretch your words when you're speaking. Spanish is 25% longer than English, and it takes longer, 25% longer, for me to say everything in Spanish that you are saying in English. So we are going to keep our camera off, but if at some point we need you to slow down because you're going too fast, we're going to turn on our camera and we're going to make this sign. And basically what we're saying is stretch your words so that we can catch up with what you're saying. Also, please remember to speak very close to your microphone. And if you're on Zoom, please remain muted unless it's your turn to speak so that we can avoid any background noise. Hola a todos, mi nombre es Andrea, estoy aquí con mi colega Valentina. Vamos a estar brindando interpretación simultánea en inglés y en español para poder practicar la justicia del lenguaje en este espacio donde podamos comunicarnos en la manera en la que nos sintamos más cómodos. Una vez que aprendamos la interpretación, van a ver un mapamundo en la parte inferior de su pantalla o 3 punticos donde dice More y ahí van a poder seleccionar su idioma. Si son totalmente bilingües, no tienen que seleccionar ninguno. Esta interpretación va a funcionar en Zoom, así que recuerden escoger su idioma. If you are in the room and you need interpretation in English and in Spanish, I know that the hosts have computers available so that you can log into Zoom so that you can select your language. Si estás en la sala de la conferencia allá en físico y necesitas interpretación en inglés y en español, sé que las personas que están liderando esta conferencia tienen computadoras disponibles para que ustedes puedan utilizar la interpretación desde allá. And we can begin interpretation now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, the learning lab of this space is figuring out how we can incorporate more inclusive practices into the work that we do. And it's always good to be reminded of the inclusive practices that are going to be available. Thank you for making sure we focused on that in this second day as well. So for the next 30 minutes, we will be using the Hummingly Doing Well exercise cards. These cards, for those of you who are here in person, can be found in the CMIS journal that you received at the registration desk. The cards are in a small business card-sized envelope with a QR code on the front that will give you access to the Hummingly website. For those of you who are joining us virtually, there will be a Google Drive link dropped into the chat that should give you access to those cards as well. The Doing Well cards support well-being and performance. In your envelope, you have 3 cards. Each card has a different emphasis. Connect cards are tied to Mobilize and are about getting the best support from your support network when you need it most. Tips for Turbulence, great alliteration there, are tips, tricks, and tales, even better, from people around the world to help steer you through rough times. Prototype Your Body encourages small experiments to help you work out how to best support your body, your physical experience, to perform and stay well, even under pressure. Damn Good Decisions are cards for which, when the pressure is on, even our decision-making powers can be at their best when we're thinking about how we make decisions. And making poor decisions only adds to our load and stress levels, so that's a nice one to focus on. Those cards provide a range of questions that you can use to test key decisions. The Cool Down cards help guide you when you are at risk of coming undone under pressure. It is during the calm that you are best placed to reflect on your tendencies and work out strategies before high emotion and stress hit. Your Next Move cards provide a range of ways to use cards by yourself, in teams, and at home. That's a lot. So we really encourage, as a starting place, for you to just digest the cards individually. Take a look at them, see which ones connect with you. Consider which one you might choose as a favorite for this morning. think about maybe why that card is really speaking to you this morning. And once you've had a chance to just sort of see the options that are in front of you and pick one thing, the invitation is to turn to others at your table and share what the card says, why it's your favorite. Use it to start a conversation. If you want, you can swap cards, finding one that someone else has that may be a new favorite. And if you have a question on one of your cards, maybe you use that to start sort of the discussion at your table. Each person could answer the question, pick a different one, pass it if they want to. You can follow up on questions, ask or expand. We hope that you can also use the Zoom chat environment and the ability to pick a particular person to have a conversation with, or just offer the conversation to the group that is joining us virtually as a way to use those cards as well as you start to feel inspired by it that way. Again, this is just an opportunity to spark conversation in the morning and give us sort of an interactive but more sort of small group start to the conference morning. Feel free to continue to enjoy the breakfast here in the room and encourage the openness with each other. If you have questions, please feel free to scan the QR code that's on the screen. It takes you to a guided video on how to further utilize each card if you'd like that guidance, but otherwise, we hope you're interested to see sort of where this takes you, and we will reconvene around 8:40 to proceed with other things that we're doing at this morning's conference. Thank you all. Of course. Yep.
I can't hear that. I need drums.
All right. It's wonderful to hear in the room and hopefully see in Zoom the great engagement and conversations that have been going on. Thank you so much for, again, making the most of our time with other folks who think about this work and who are so critical to the work that we can encourage one another to be mindful of what we need and how we are best supported in doing good work for community by taking care of ourselves. So we are going to move next into another interactive session. Within the feedback, the constraints of where we are, we have added a couple of new things that we hope is going to improve the experience this morning and give us a chance to have really good conversations with some great facilitators in the small groups that we have again. So once again, the reminder is that we have 3 groups in the room, one of which is also connected to our virtual participants. This, my right, your left side, if you're facing me, conference room, these 7 tables are a first group, The group of 7 tables across the back between 2 monitors is a second group. And then these 4 tables up front are also connected then to the folks who are joining us virtually, and they are our third group. What we have done today, among other things, is to make sure that each group has a fully functioning microphone that connects directly to the captioning that you see on the monitors that are either the ones feeding to our virtual participants or the ones that are specific to the groups in the room. What we are hoping in having those 3 microphones will help do is that we'll be able to slightly turn down the volume of the microphones, but still have them be resonant for the small group space that we have. And again, the encouragement on your part, because we all sort of participate in making things better, is that if your table has a strip of tape on it, it's yellow. If you can't see yellow, it's just a strip of tape in the middle of the table. We are asking that folks who are sitting at those tables currently move their chairs closer to the monitors and the speakers of their particular section. If you would like assistance with moving your chair, please signal the conference team. They're willing to help, maybe a table mate, and we'll make sure that there is sort of a more like circle or semicircle type of space around the presenters. We really appreciate everybody's willingness to, again, make the most of these experiences to sort of try this update to what we can do in the room. And we really do welcome your encouraging solutions and next steps for how we can continue to improve this in your feedback after the conference. But in just a minute, we're going to give a chance to introduce this session's speakers. We will be going to a brief break before we jump into those interactive sessions. But if Tim Gablehouse, June Kales, and Melissa Marshall will make their way towards the stage for where they would like to give their introductions to everyone about what they're going to be facilitating in the small groups, I'll let Mike kick off kind of this introduction to the interactive session.
Good morning. When does a joke become a dad joke? When it becomes apparent. Okay. Innovation in emergency management is increasing as we expand our networks. There have always been must-tos tied to the laws, statutes, and legislation that drives what we do. As this innovation increases, we are able to develop best practices for how-tos to support the must-tos. These best practices will be shared in the upcoming sessions through funding discussions, document and website accessibility, how-tos, planning for independence, resource disruption, the magical thinking of registries, the utilization of national partners to learn from. It is now my pleasure to introduce this session's facilitators and have them introduce their focus. We have Melissa Marshall from Partnership for Inclusive Disaster Strategies, June Kales, and Tim Gablehouse. Keep it going for another 2 minutes. Don't stop until we get all, I'm kidding. All right. Do you want to something quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Hi, everybody. The thing I want to focus on is a degree to which there is a trap in the thinking of a lot of folks in the emergency planning world when it comes to independence. And obviously, you know, we've talked a long time about civil rights issues and ADA issues and things like that. But what I'm seeing when I'm having that conversation with emergency management folks is a very interesting pushback. And so that's the conversation I want to have with all of you, because this is obviously a two-way street. So thank you.
I can bring it to you, if you'd like.
No, keep it.
Okay. It is on.
You move it, Mike.
Sorry.
You move it closer.
Absolutely.
Whoa, it's dark up here and they can't see me. You guys can't see me because of the thingy. Where's
If you'd like to move to that side, you can go on camera there.
sorry, how about right here? So now I can. No. We are adjusting as we go. I'll wave to you. All right, so I need a flashlight here for my notes, but so I did a workshop, a pre-workshop on registry. So some of you, this will be a repeat for those of you who missed it. This is the Cliff Notes version. So and you all have a chance to ask some questions later. I was asked to get your juices flowing. I was asked to piss you off. I was asked to annoy you, to make you uncomfortable, and at least ignite or excite you. At least that's what Sadie told me. So we can discuss better options than emergency registries for people with disabilities. And just to define this, I'm only talking about disasters, big events that overwhelm local resources, more regional in geographic spread, major events, not the easy emergencies that we do well. So some people continue to promote registries as good practice and model interventions, which are straightforward, simple, and compelling approaches to including and assisting people with disabilities before, during, and after disasters. It's not any of these. We must expose the registry and flawed information and cut through the registry rhetoric. A registry is a Band-Aid, check the box, short-sighted, and shallow planning tool with fatal flaws. And somewhat, for some, and sometimes fatal consequences. Registries are symbolic, wishful thinking plans with unfulfilled over promises. It's an approach to, and listen to this carefully, taking care of the disability problem and keeping us, people with disabilities, appeased and quiet. It is not a fix or a plan. Registries divert time and resources of registrants, responders, and planners from working on effort around planning and solutions. For people with disabilities, it diverts our efforts to think about our plans and our steps to establish and keep current personal support systems, helpers, and evacuation plans. For planners, registries divert energy from development plans, assets, and response capacity. Registries are about wasted time, wasted trips, and wasted calls for overstretched responders and volunteers. Registry state of laws include an underestimation of response capacity based on assuming that we are at fixed locations, that we are always home, that we are sick, we are homebound, and basically it's a misapplication of a medical model and a medical bias. It's not inclusive and it lacks any outcome evidence. So all community partners must focus on the real and better solutions involving the hard work, the teamwork, and the real work. The work needed to build assets and response capacity and operationalize, embed, maintain, and sustain real health. So just leave you with this thought. Planners must not use the lens of middle class privilege, ageism, and ableism. This planning must protect against incorrectly assuming that everyone has a stable internet connection, has money to buy emergency supplies, owns a working vehicle, and can walk, run, see, hear, speak, and understand. So more later, get your questions ready, your challenges, and prepare to give me a really hard time. That's it.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Yay. So we're okay for people joining us virtually? So good morning, good day, buenos dias to everyone in this room and to everyone who's joining us virtually. Thank you so much for being here. This has been a really exciting event, and today's going to be exciting. The rest of today is going to be exciting as well. I'm going to talk to you about the must-dos and the how-tos around access and functional needs. The things you know you have to do, that you've been told you have to do, that are right to be done, we're going to look at how to get those things done. Who do you go to find sign language interpreters? What do you do when someone needs a personal assistant? How do you do those things, and how do you best find them out? I'm going to give you a spoiler alert here, though. The spoiler alert is to go to disability-led organizations. Notice I'm not saying disability organizations. I'm saying organizations run by a majority of people with disabilities, because we understand the issues. And I'm going to be going into why we understand the issues, how we understand the issues. Not that other organizations are not valuable, but it needs to come from the disability community and to be led by us, to be led by people with disabilities. That's really important, because what happens when we don't get equal access? Especially in a disaster or an emergency, the consequences are dire. And you might think, well, someone didn't get to read a form because it wasn't in an accessible format. Well, maybe they didn't go to notify, they didn't know how, they didn't know when to leave. They didn't know when to evacuate. They didn't know when to be notified. They didn't know how to register for a COVID vaccine. They couldn't register for a COVID vaccine because it wasn't accessible. They couldn't seek out other public health services. They couldn't seek out other things that people in disasters need. And that's really important. And the consequences are dire. I'm getting a slow down sign. Thank you, Sadie. I will do my best. I'm like Anne Marie. I'm from Boston and originally, and I talk fast for someone from Boston. So I'm trying. Just know that. The other thing that happens to people with disabilities when we don't get equal access to disaster-related programs and services is we end up in institutions. Or we get sick or we die. What happens when people with disabilities end up just in a nursing home? You might think, oh, that's temporary. We get lost. We get separated from our loved ones. We get sick. we get sicker and we die at earlier rates. And some people debated that. We knew that for a fact. And to the degree that it was ever debatable, the COVID-19 pandemic has made it absolutely positively incontrovertible. We get sick, we die, and when we go to institutions. So by providing people with equal access to programs and services, you help keep people out of institutions, you help keep us in the community where we belong. So I again invite you to give June a hard time. You can give me a hard time as well. Bring your questions, bring your thoughts, bring your ideas. It's always okay. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Please ask any questions, talk. I'm someone with a disability. It's okay to ask me any questions you want about disability and my disability and around disaster. So thank you so much, or anything else. So be seeing you soon. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thank you, facilitators, for introducing yourself. I hope that has primed a lot of questions that you're writing down as we prepare to go to a quick snack break. If you didn't believe that we believe that providing food is one of the best ways to bring people to a conference, you better believe that we do. And if you need to save some of that food for later because you're already stuffed, that's fine. But we hope you'll do at least something again to sort of reset, refresh, help your brain focus as we come back to interactive sessions. So we'll be back here at 9:15. I got you. I'm so sorry. All right, let's say you did wonderful. Thank you all. Looks like we're all getting settled closer in our clusters in the room. For folks who are online, thanks for jumping into the conversation, and thank you again to our facilitators who are leading these conversations for the how-to supporting the must-tos. Again, we have about 20 minutes per session, so please be bringing your questions and your discussions quickly, and have a great time. Sorry.
Okay, guys. Is this on? Can you hear me? Is the captioning on? Is this a live mic? Okay, do we have captioning? Good. Okay, so I'm June Kales. I'm from LA. I'm a disability policy consultant. And my bio's in the app. And my slides are in the app too for the long workshop on Tuesday. So this is your time, not my time. To ask me questions, challenge me, anything, everything's on the table. So go for it. I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk with you. So what's up? You can't all agree with me. That won't work. Okay, we need a mic runner. Where's Drew? Right behind you.
Yeah, you are. There you go.
So June, we talked yesterday about the community connection. How do we, the day-to-day sort of tool that's like a registry, but more for the emergency, right? The day-to-day. I think it's hard for emergency managers to hear that at least I'll speak for myself, to hear that somehow we're responsible for people ending up in nursing homes because we don't have a plan. And I feel like what we do is there's a lot of complexity too, but a lot of times there's one emergency manager. So how do I think we go to registries because we think, not because we don't care, but because we think we're doing something, right? So what are some of the other things we were talking about? How do we teach people with disabilities, like everybody, the whole community, to also have a plan for themselves? So what do you think we can do as emergency managers with fairly limited time in a lot of cases to help start that conversation and do something?
Okay, I think first to recognize that doing something like a registry is probably not doing much at all. And so what can you do? And I think for an emergency manager, it's important to recognize that it's not about your department doing it alone, that you need to bring in the community, which means other departments that you may not even have authority over, but somehow you have to work with them. Aging, transportation, health, public works, airports, power, utilities. And at least in LA, we found that the emergency manager did not have the authority to bring them in. So you either have to use your stellar personality or you have to go to who you relate to. Maybe it's the mayor or the county supervisor or whoever, and say, would you mandate that we have to work together? And that also involves the community partners that we talked about all last 2 days. Centers, not yet. Centers, aging, developmental disability organizations, particularly those who help people with their personal plans rather than, oh, magically just sign up for this friggin' registry. No, who's going to help you evacuate if no transportation is going to come pick you up? Is the reality that if you are say a quadriplegic, your neighbor, to save your life, may have to throw you in the backseat of their car to get you out of harm's way. Those kind of conversations have to occur. So we organizations have to work with people on their real plans. And it's not a one-time thing. It's like sometimes working with people's plans individually takes repeated meetings. It's not a one and done. So Mr. Mike, should I allow you to say something? I'm scared to do that, but.
Here in Region 8, just some ideas, because you're asking from a Region 8 perspective, rural states. One of the things I'm seeing in Montana, what I saw in rural California and other places, even here in Wyoming and Utah, the state-led advisory council is led primarily with ESF 8 because they have a bigger footprint than ESF 5. So building an MOU between those two parties and 5 and 8, because both of you report to the governor, which is responsible for all. But within ESF 8's organization, there's assisted living person, there's senior elder affairs person, there's all these different personnel within ESF 8 that they maybe can be an MOU that you create with them in terms of if somebody has to go to a nursing home, know that in 28 days they lose their waiver. So if that is a plan, there needs to be a coordination with 8 to get them out. Right? If it is part of your plan to use a nursing home temporarily a week because of rural lack of resources, I'm just thinking outside the box. I'm not saying that's the best practice. I'm saying that's an option, but it takes dialogue. And if you can have that in your quarterly meetings with ESF 8 and compare that with your all hazard plan and resources and things like that, there may be MOA and MOU opportunities between those two parties.
So Mike and I are talking at two different levels. I'm talking locally or, statewide too, but you're talking FEMA, statewide, regional. ESF8, I don't know what that is. I didn't think so. It's health and medical, but it's their emergency functions and they come out of the federal government. And basically 8, if you really dig at it from the federal government, it's very medical model. It's very, disability equals sick equals medical kind of thing. So we have to mitigate that and kind of move away from, this is only a healthcare issue. And that's a big conversation that Mike and I could have for days or weeks. What else? Yeah.
Then I have an online comment after this.
So when you're talking local, I can give 2 examples to kind of give you an idea of it. For Centers for Independent Living, there was 2 when Joplin in May of 2011, Joplin, Missouri, a smaller town, had an F5 tornado. The Center for Independent Living there mobilized in seconds. They have a ready-made registry of all the people with disabilities they serve in that area. And so tapping into your Centers for Independent Living, like June has talked about and others have talked about, they have ready-made all of a sudden. Now you have and they mobilized in days, and FEMA came in and they were just amazed at how quickly this small town had actually taken care of people with disabilities as well as other individuals. And so their Centers for Independent Living, you have an immense resource in those. Also in Boulder, Colorado, when they showed yesterday the flooding that happened in Lyons, it also happened in Boulder, Colorado. Again, the Center for Independent Living there, Center for People with Disabilities, they mobilized immediately. They knew where their people were. They went and they took care of them. And so those are your best resource because they have ready-made databases right then and there to be able to do better than any registry ever could because it's their registry.
So I just want to compliment what you said because it's perfect. What you're saying in my language is Centers for Independent Living, area agencies on aging, other disability focused groups have current list of people. Current registry lists are always stale and out of date. Current. It's not a registry. It's just people you support on a daily basis. And I would add to that, real planning means that your center in Joplin or wherever, not only has a current list, but knows how to sort that list by people who are at higher risk. So when you contact people in an emergency, you know who to contact first. And typically, there are people who live alone, who don't have good support systems, who don't have any kind of transportation, who really would be in the biggest risk group first. So I think that's a nuance and a complexity to apply as well. But you're right on. It's all about using a community group that already have the current list. That also includes the vendors, oxygen people, DMA people. We go on with this one for a long time too. Good point. Yeah, Joplin was a great example. And you know, FEMA, I love to pick on FEMA, and others say, we're the help until help arrives. And I say, nonsense. We're the help after help arrives as well. We don't stop just because some FEMA arrives. No. Virtual question.
Yes, virtual comment, more than a question. This is from Daryl Schaefer. And he makes two comments here. Many solutions are created to address a single issue, one person's disability into one registry read by one person, but does not function when multiplied to hundreds of people with disabilities into one registry read by one person. He also says advocacy groups tend to focus only on their single disability as the number one priority, which creates too many number one priorities for emergency managers to address.
Correct. Other comments? You know, you're really looking to include your community partners who have a cross disability focus. So like Daryl says, you're looking for people who can not only talk about people who are blind, but people with low vision, people who are hard of hearing, people who are deaf, people who have problems with memory, with learning. So you're looking for in your planning groups, you're looking for qualified community people who can talk from that perspective, as well as bring back to you input from a number of people who can't all be represented on your planning groups. And that brings me to one of my other editorial comments, which is, I'm not a fan of advisory groups that meet once a month and you have a little presentation and it's one and done until next month. I'm much more of a fan where you bring in people to work on specific issues of your plan. You know, what are your questions? FEMA and California has this annoying, is that 10 or 5? 5 minutes. Has this annoying practice of saying, would you please comment on our emergency plan? Just send us your comments. That is so bad. If you want me to comment on your plan, what are your questions? What are your challenges? What do we need to work on together? Don't ask me to comment on a plan in writing that goes to a black hole and we never have any kind of conversation. I'm over that. I think we all should rebel against that kind of request for input. I love to make these editorial statements. So fun. What else? Do any of you have a registry? Okay, so this is the choir. So it's all about the other side. You know, are any of you working with your emergency managers on their plan, on response? How many? 1, 2, 3. Really good. Anyone want to share anything relevant? Anything? Yeah.
Hi there. My name's Allison Butler, and actually I wanted to ask a question if I could, before we get to that. So I'm in the city government, we're in the disability rights office, and it sounds like sort of what you're saying is registries themselves aren't the problem. It's sort of who keeps them, how they update them, how they implement them when we need it. Because sort of, even you used the word, Joan, registry that the Independent Living Center used. I guess one, like, I don't know, nagging thought for me from working in the government is it feels stressful to say, okay, we're going to rely on our community partners to make that plan and to carry out that plan, implement that plan. And like, we don't have any, I don't know, like authority to make them do it. So there's a major disaster and the Independent Living Center is like, we've got to get all our people safe. And we're moving 100 miles away to be safe. And then we're like, oh, shoot, what do we do here in the government to help? Like, so I guess that's where I want to know is how can we work on that?
Thank you so much for that answer. A lot of this questions is really important.
Okay, real quick. You don't rely on, you partner with, you plan with, not here you go, community, you do it. That won't work. And you contract with, you have agreements with, you recognize that these are businesses out there, even if they're nonprofits. So you have agreements, you may need to pay them. It's not rely on, it's do with. It won't work that way. It's gotta be together better. Yeah, I had one other thought we were saying, but, no on registries, don't even use that word. It's such a minefield. Use the fact that community groups have current updated list of people and work with them to kind of striate their group so they know how to contact first. They can help determine who's in harm's way first. And most of all, create a system where people can check in with you, ILC, Independent Living Center, and say, hey, June here, I'm okay. I know I'm on your high list, but I'm okay. Go on and work with other people. Two-way communication. So you don't have to call everyone all the time. Yeah.
There we go. Thank you. Okay, so I'm a public health person and I do the ESF 8. Andrew Glendenning, I'm from Weld County. And I guess my question is, as we're working on our ESF 8 plan, you're right, there is a very heavy medical model focus. What, if I'm working on my plan, what would be your 3 big tips or takeaways or things to include in a plan update that I would do?
For ESF made a health and medical, recognize that most people don't rely on the health system. They're living independently in the community with chronic conditions. They might need meds, they might need DME, they might need consumable medical supplies, but they're not relating to hospitals or nursing homes, which are the focus of 8. They're in the.
I always regret being the one to cut off a great question and a conversation, but we're going to take about 2 minutes to let our facilitators wind down their final response and move to the second group so we can keep these interactive sessions going. If you have not had a chance to stand up or shift your posture, do something different for a moment, please do that for yourself.
So Andrew, if I had my way, I would redefine 8 to begin with and make it a whole lot less institutional based when the majority of people are in the community. Good. So we could talk about that forever too. Thanks. Good questions. I liked it. Fun.
Thank you.
In your new space, feel free to start the discussion.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me? I have been told to project. I have license to be loud. How cool is that? Thank you, Mike, for telling me to be loud and proud. Thank you for coming today. I want to talk to you about what it takes. There's things you have to do for people with disabilities. You have to provide accessible disaster-related programs and services to people with disabilities, right? Okay, that's the law. That's federal law under the ADA for the most part. That's law under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act when there's federal funds involved. Don't get me going the legal. I've talked to you for months about that. And how do you do it? And I'm going to make some suggestions and I want to have some discussion about this. One of the things we find is really important is to have disability-led organizations leading. That could be a Center for Independent Living. The Partnership for Inclusive Disaster Strategies is not a Center for Independent Living. We're a global disability and disaster organization, and we fight for equality for people with disabilities in disasters globally. And it's really important to have people who are effective leading the charge, saying, this is what we need. Maybe this is what we don't need. This is what you have to do. You might have forgotten about that. This is how you can do it. So going to disability-led organizations is key. And ideally, you don't want to be going to the disability-led organization once the hurricane is hit. And you can, and you should, if you haven't done it, it's never too late. But you want to involve people with disabilities in your planning. You want people with disabilities, all kinds of people with disabilities, to have a seat at the table. You find people with disabilities, independent living centers, and you want people in leadership roles. Just because I have a disability doesn't mean I know anything about disability rights or have a rights-bearing philosophy or know anything about anti-ableism work. You don't make that assumption. But so you want people who know what's going on, who are committed to disability justice doing these things. So Centers for Independent Living. Sometimes you can also go to single disability-led groups like the National Association for the Deaf, National Federation for the Blind. Apologies to all the groups that I didn't specify there. There's other groups out there, but those single groups, as long as they're disability-led, not family-led, led by people with disabilities. And that's what you want to get to. So what do people have questions about? What do people want to talk about? Thoughts, ideas. How many people have ever been in a disaster situation or been afraid of being in a disaster situation, people with disabilities, and experienced not having your needs met, not having equal access to disaster-related programs and services? Can you raise your hands, please? I see 1, I see 2, I see 3, I see 4. Okay, and are you hearing me? Is everyone hearing me okay? Is the mic close enough to my mouth? Okay, great. So, and how many people provide services who have experienced not being able to make their services as accessible as they would like? And I see 4 or 5 hands. Yeah, I see everyone's nodding with that. Yes. Okay. So one of the things that needs to happen is the people that raise their hands the first time need to connect with the people who raised their hands the second time. And do I have any comments from people who are participating virtually? Okay, thank you.
So yeah, there is one comment right now. Let me see here. There's actually two comments. Let's see, there's a web address for disasterstrategies.org, which has more to do with the Partnership for Inclusive Disaster Strategies. That was one comment that was made. And then another comment, having one disability does not translate to being an authority on another disability.
First of all, absolutely positively, having one disability doesn't translate into being an authority on another disability. And I think that's really important. I'm getting this slow down signal, so I will work to slow down. And disasterstrategies.org is the Partnership for Inclusive Disaster Strategies website. And as I said, we are a disability-led organization working to make sure that people with disabilities achieve access in disasters and emergencies globally. And there's a brochure that I have copies of that I'm going to be passing around. And I'm going to be passing them around. There's some there. And they're also on the conference app. And it's about the services we do, because it's not just about connecting with people. It's also about preparing for disasters, making sure you know how to function during a disaster, your continuity of operations is happening. Make sure you've analyzed the gaps in these kinds of things that you do. So did I address those 2 things? I addressed both of those points. Okay. And let me know if I don't want to leave anyone who's participating virtually, because usually I'm one of the virtual people participating virtually, and I know what that's like. Okay. They're never going to see me. So please visit the Partnership for Inclusive Disaster Strategies website. Other questions, comments? So you guys need to talk. So think about how you can plan together. How many people with disabilities here have been at planning tables around disaster planning? 1 person? Okay.
So I'm an emergency manager, but as a person who's hard of hearing and rapidly losing like this last year in my right ear, I have just struggled with regular meetings. I struggle with being an emergency manager, but also trying to think about, look, from a microphone is a simple example. So in the space where I have large meetings and where my emergency operations center is, the microphone's not working. A class, and I went to my leadership and said, we need to fix this. Well, we don't need a microphone. People can just talk loud. So for me, it's internally, there's external helping everyone else community, but internally, I feel like I have to push for a pulse shift to help other people see what accessibility means as an organization. Because if we don't do it every day, we're not going to be able to do it when the disaster hits. And that's kind of where I live day to day as an emergency manager. And I'll just say it again, one person trying to do things. It's a challenge.
This is Melissa again. I'm smiling because I see they put the slow down sign on a chair permanently instead. No, for me, they just left it there for me as a reminder. I think it's really critical as somebody with a disability, as someone with hearing loss, to be able to, first of all, that is a reasonable accommodation you're required to have in the workplace. And this is the one term I'm actually using the term reasonable accommodation correctly. It only applies to workplace stuff. We call it reasonable accommodations in other circumstances. It's really a modification of policy, but you're entitled to that reasonable accommodation. Now, that's all well and good for you to have that right. And I'm sure your supervisor says you absolutely have that right. And I'm sure if you ask your colleagues, you say, of course she has that right. Of course she has the right to equal access. And it breaks down when the microphone doesn't work in a group or someone just doesn't want to. And it's really hard for you to have to be the person every single time to say, excuse me, this is an access issue for me and other people here. Excuse me, please don't do this. And you get labeled. You're the complainer. Yes.
Good morning. My name is Billy. I'm deaf myself, but I get it. When you talk to a person, you say, oh, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. That needs to stop right there. So I think the best approach to that is to take that person out privately somewhere and have a one-on-one discussion and really clearly explain it to them, not in front of a group, and find a way to do that. That's the first thing, to find a way and talk to that person. And the second thing is you can contact me or Luke or anybody in the CCDHDB, and we'll find you some devices that are pretty cool devices out there that'll help you accommodate those needs. But if there's other disabilities too, you're not seeing things clearly or something, you want things large print or something like that, just find a way to talk to your supervisor or leader privately and say, hey, this is not working. And you explain to them why it's not working and work that out. If that doesn't happen, then contact me and I'll show you a way to do cowboy diplomacy.
This is Melissa again. I like that phrase, cowboy diplomacy. I'm going to start using that. And I just want to say, as having been the person in other situations, in other organizations, to be the one to say, you have to do this differently, and it's for people more than me, that's a lot of pressure. And I think my response to that is every organization needs to have lots of training. They need to have how to interact with training on how to interact with people with disabilities in a way that isn't ableist, that doesn't express their bias, what legal obligations are. And training isn't just a one-time thing. It's ongoing. We learn all the time. Disability rights change all the time. Disability technology changes all the time. You know, if you told me 3 years ago, we're going to be doing a virtual hybrid meeting, or 4 years ago, we're going to be doing a virtual hybrid meeting in ASL, and it was going to be interpreted into Spanish, I'd have thought, wow, that's challenging. And it is. And I think one of the things that's been modeled here, and we have to keep modeling, is there will be glitches when we try to do these hard technological things. And when there's a glitch, and when some people are left out, everybody stops. Everybody waits. The person with the disability that might be affected by it, or the person who's in another part of the country who might be affected by it, doesn't get to participate. They have to be patient, and so do we. Everyone is patient. But I think it's worth having a conversation with your management. And they don't want to do it just for you. That's a good practice. Because like you said so well, if people aren't doing it now in blue sky times, it's going to be really challenging for them to do it when there's a disaster. And it shouldn't just all be on the shoulders of one person with a disability. It shouldn't be up to one person. And we tend to internalize our own ableism. We tend to internalize those own things. And we need to start speaking up for ourselves like we'd speak up for other people. And it's really easy for me to say that. It's not always easy for me to do that. So I'm, just understand. I'm not just like, oh, just do it this way. But thank you for bringing it up. It's a really, really important point, and people need to understand that. Yes. Mike is on his way.
And after this, there's another online comment.
Hi, this is Joan again. That has happened in my previous life in terms of when I was executive director of a Center for Independent Living when the fires were happening. And they were close to us in terms of by Loveland and things like that. Pardon me? Okay, that's better. Eat the mic. All right. I'm very seldom accused of not speaking loud enough. So that's a very unusual thing for me. But it was funny because we had a training happening in Loveland and the fires were near Estes and near us. So they were very visible. And what people, when you're talking about, you can't wait till the last second to start doing these. And we had a meeting happening. People could still come by. There was no danger where we were, but it was impacting a lot of people around us. And state people were coming to Loveland from Denver, and they got there and we're a little freaked out. He said, we're driving down 25 and we see this wall of something. We don't know what it is. And so they finally had their eyes open that, yeah, this is impacting people that have, breathing issues. Even if you don't have breathing issues, it was very impactful. Ash was everywhere, and it was eye-opening to those that have never experienced that and got that in close. More, we tried to explain to them, this is why you need to plan ahead of times, because what you don't know is what you don't know. And now you're experiencing what we did. They couldn't breathe. Their eyes were watering constantly. And I says, this is not just impacting where the fire is, it impacts 20 miles away as well. And so educating ahead of time is really, really important.
This is Melissa. That is so important. Education is critical in all of this. And if it's impacting people without disabilities, we know it's disproportionately impacting people with disabilities for a couple of reasons. It might be because of our disabilities, but we're more likely to live in poverty and not have the resources to a home with the HEPA filter or the masks or those things. And I'm passing on. I'm seeing the 5-minute single.
Okay, this is a comment from Laura, I think Stremmel. Many people have not experienced a disaster or an emergency and may not know what needs would be unmet. It's important to include people with lived experiences in exercises.
Absolutely. That's my one-word answer. Absolutely. And need to be doing exercises. Part of planning is exercising. So if you write a plan and it's sitting on your hard drive or collecting dust, it's not worthy. It's not that worthwhile. And it's worthwhile. It's better to do something than nothing. But the way a plan comes to life is to have it be exercised. When you have it exercised, that's when you get to break things. And one of the things we do at the partnership, we do virtual exercises and in-person exercises where, we'll have someone, and we had someone who was really skilled in emergency management, really experienced, and we're working with his Center for Independent Living. First person we made to be unconscious was him, so they couldn't ask him what to do. But what you do when that person is out sick that day or didn't come in that day or was injured that day and those kinds of things, you need to exercise. So your centers, what happens if there's a fire at your center and, the tree falls through the window because there's a hurricane too, and someone has a heart attack? What happens with all those things? And it's one of the things we do is helping to evacuate, making sure we know how to evacuate people with disabilities, which is really, really critical. And stick injects in. We have kind of fun when people get to problem solve in the moment, as it were. And that's what an exercise is. A plan is one thing, but it's not really a plan until you exercise it repeatedly over and over. Do we have any more? We have no more. Great. I'm not leaving anyone out. This is good. Any other comments? And thank you, John. Where's your center, John?
Where I was before was serving Larimer County and Jackson, which is rural area, up in the mountains, past just going towards Steamboat.
Thank you. And sometimes groups have done exercises with people simulating disabilities, pretending to have a disability or pretending to have a disability they don't have. Like if they had someone like me who uses a scooter pretending to be blind or pretending to be deaf, that's not going to be effective because guess what? I'm not either of those things. Just like if they had someone who's just deaf, pretending not to be able to walk long distances, they're not that thing. They have their disability. Getting people with disabilities to participate in the exercises, learning where things break, learning where things go wrong, learning how to do them right, and doing it over and over again. And you really, really, really want to practice that because that's how you get a handle on how to do this. And we can talk about it, we can plan about it, we can understand it intellectually, but we just need to do it. And I think that's really important. And also plan for what's going to happen if there's no cell connectivity. How are you going to continue to serve people? Are you going to continue to serve people? Does center staff know what to do if there's no cell connectivity? Do they come in? Do they not come in? Do they work virtually? What do? They know what to do. Those are the kinds of things centers need to be thinking about. And those are the things that emergency management people need to be thinking about in terms of connecting with people from the disability community. Go to each other's tables. We're at each other's table right now. People from the disability community get involved in emergency management and vice versa. And someone's saying having a disability doesn't make you an authority. Having authority doesn't make you an authority on your disability. You want people who are interested in emergency management and have expertise in it. You're not just pulling random people from the street with disabilities. You want leaders who have credibility in the community and have connections in the community, committed to this issue, want to learn something about this issue. Other questions or comments? We have time for like one more. You guys are.
It's to your point about microphones and how we communicate and things like that. And FEMA, it's been a long time battle because a lot of folks don't like this. But when I show them the captioning with a mic or without a mic, the message changes. So do an exercise internally, you know, without people, just have a meeting, generic meeting without a mic and captioning and with a mic. And so a comparison of the transcript and the validity of the message, because that's how you can aha moment someone that says, I don't like this thing.
This is Melissa and Mike. Thank you for that. That was a really good, there was a really good suggestion, a really good idea. And we have the ding. So go forth with the rest of your day or next session.
Facilitators, thank you so much for wrapping up your final question and making your way to the third group. Thank you, facilitators. We're ready to start round 3.
You make any noise about facilitation? Okay. Geez, that's great. Okay. Hi, I'm Tim Gablehouse. Can you hear me okay? The room's kind of loud. Room is kind of loud. Yeah. Okay. So I am an attorney. If you were here last year, you heard me talk about civil rights and emergency planning kinds of activities. I do that kind of chat a lot to folks. Do I have to swallow it? Okay. Have to swallow it. All right. Message I want to give you is that we need to have a very two-way street in communication between members of communities, regardless of the community, and emergency planning and emergency management. Earlier this week, I'm in London for UN conferences where we're talking about emergency management in the developing world. And one of the key problems we're facing there, it comes up in the context of independence and perceptions of independence. Okay. There's a senator from the Philippines she was talking about impact to some of her constituents from the super typhoons, mostly last year to a certain degree. and the devastation that occurred, and the fact that a perception that those communities are independent and resilient is in fact retarding aid efforts. It's you don't need the help because you've got it covered. You've told us that you've got it covered. And therefore it ends up being a trap. Okay. What we tell emergency managers is that, yeah, there's a civil right to emergency planning. And here's how you determine whether or not you're satisfying that civil right. And it's a process. The process first is understanding what are the risks in your community. How do those risks impact all the various members of your community, from small businesses to people with access and functional needs, to people with non-English speakers, whoever the component pieces are of your community, okay? How do those hazards impact them? And what are everybody's capabilities? And I'm not talking about law enforcement. I'm not talking about fire departments. I'm talking about the entire community. What can they do? What can't they do? Are we communicating adequately to everybody in the community about where we have gaps in capability? You know, internationally, the big mantra is we need to be honest with everybody in the community about what we can't handle. Okay? This isn't going to happen if we have this kind of an event. I cannot, as an emergency planner, develop an adequate emergency plan, okay, unless I understand whether my planning assumptions, my understanding or perception of capabilities is real. What's reality in my community? We do a really lousy job worldwide, but in the US too, a lousy job talking to people about what the risks are, what the capability gaps are, and creating reasonable expectations of all the community members on what happens. And that allows people to get away with using 911 as their emergency plan. Okay. We do not go out and ask people what they're going to do if we say evacuate. We do not go out and ask people what they're going to do if we tell them to shelter in place. Okay. We do not go out and ask people what they're going to do if they get a pre-evacuation warning. Because guess what? Most people have no idea what to do in any of those circumstances. Okay. And so officialdom loves to assume that they can provide direction at the time and that people will perform in a reasonable fashion. And that is just a guess. We tell people in the emergency management world, you need to go out and solicit participation from your community. I mentioned earlier about pushback. Okay. The pushback I get from emergency managers all across the country, okay, is that, well, I try to reach out and nobody will talk to me. I try to reach out and I get no feedback. Okay. My response to them is, well, you may not be reaching out in the right way. Okay. Does your audience know that you want input, that you'll receive input or not? Okay. You can't just put something on the internet and assume you're going to get responses to it. Okay. We tell emergency planners that the only way to determine whether their planning is successful is they have to demonstrate that they're filling capability gaps. You can't measure success on the last bad day. Okay, you cannot measure success on whether or not the last disaster had a good outcome, because of course it won't. Okay, that's not reality. The only thing I can measure from a success point of view is whether I am filling capability gaps. There are going to be thousands of them, and I'm going to have to prioritize them. And we tell emergency planners that that prioritization has to be a community involved prioritization. You have to involve everybody in the community to make those choices. Emergency planners, emergency managers cannot just do that sitting at their desk. That is not a job for elected county officials to prioritize. It's within all the limitations that are in the, present in the system. Okay, what are we going to prioritize from a community point of view? Now, that requires very much a two-way street. Okay. We tell emergency planners that you need to think of your job as though you're selling a car. Okay. What does your customer want in a car? Do you ever go ask them what they want in a car? Do you ever go ask them whether they like the car they've got? Because for the most part, we never tell people what's in our plans. So it's very hard to ask people if they like it or not. Right? We tell people that you need to treat the members of the community like your customer and do the classic business school kind of thing of, is our customer happy? Are we providing a product that our customer wants or not? Okay, well, we can't do that unless we're talking to folks in the community. Okay. But the message I want to give you is that also creates an obligation to be knocking on the door of the emergency planner in your community. Knock, knock, knock. Hi, we're here. We would like to chat about what our expectations are of you, of the plan. Okay. What can we do? What activities can our community fill in terms of dealing with capability gaps? Is there stuff we can do from an education point of view? Okay. Previous speaker is exactly right. Emergency planners and managers love shortcuts. Registries are a great shortcut that people use to avoid trying to have those conversations. You put out a request for, yeah, sign up to what you need and we'll handle it. It's grossly inadequate. I mean, from a civil rights point of view, from a legal point of view, it's grossly inadequate to assume that's enough. Okay, it's not. Not to mention the fact that they're legally problematic anyway. Okay, I need to have that two-way conversation. Okay, so we tell emergency planners that they need to be persistent. They need to find new ways to communicate and to ask for input. They need to actually verify whether their efforts to communicate are reaching the audience they want to talk to. Okay, and you got to do more than one thing. You can't rely on just this communication medium versus another. Okay, you got to do a lot of different things. And quite honestly, a lot of emergency managers and emergency planners are part-time people, especially in rural communities. Okay, they do not have a lot of time and energy to deal with things because, quite frankly, they've got alligators at their ankles. Okay. That really does put an obligation on every member of the community to be knocking on their door and talking to them. Okay. Hi, we're here. What do you want to know about us? What do you want to know about our needs and our capabilities? Here's what we can do. Here's what we can't do. Okay. So we have to have that kind of two-way street if we're going to be successful in this arena. Because understand, we're telling emergency planners and managers that they need to do it. Okay. And so give them the opportunity to do the right thing. The other thing that's really fascinating to me is there are sort of three big conferences in this state. Got this one. You have the Colorado Emergency Management Association, and you have the Colorado Local Emergency Planning Committee Conference. And guess what? There's very little overlap in the attendees between those three conferences. That should not be the case. Should not be the case. I realize that it's awkward to talk to people outside your lane. Okay. Some of them are not that much fun to talk to. Okay. True. But some of them are hard to talk to. Okay. You have to sort of endure that if you want to make your voice heard. Do not be passive. Okay. We tell emergency planners that they need to have high expectations of their community members in working to fill capability gaps. Okay. You need to have high expectations of the emergency planners in involving you to fill capability gaps. Okay. Two ways. So go to the other conferences. There's no particular reason. I mean, we have access functional needs chats at all three of these conferences. Sadie will be coming to the LEPC conference. I speak at them all. And generally the people, they sit there, they sit in the audience and they listen to me, they talk and they go, oh, that's just hurts my brain. I don't want to think about it. Too bad. They need to think about it, but they need to know that they have an opportunity to get the input we're telling them they need to go get. Okay, so knock on their door, send them an email, pick up the phone, however it is you prefer to communicate with folks, because you probably don't know what's in the emergency plan in your community. You need to know that. You have the right to know that. And they should involve you in the preparation of that plan. So I forget all the various questions that people have already asked me, so we'll move. Yes, Drew.
Okay, 2 online comments, both from Daryl Schaefer. And it's kind of been addressed. A small community fire department cannot be the same as a large department like Los Angeles Search and Rescue Task Force. And obviously the response from each can't or is going to be different. You know, and this goes on to say, you know, basically public media shows, you know, over the last number of years, and social media have given everybody an immediate mindset, immediate reaction, and expectation of an immediate response.
Yes. Yeah, people have an absolutely unrealistic expectations. Yeah, we see that all the time. So there's no doubt that's true. However, that is on as much on the local planners as it is anybody else in terms of developing reasonable expectations. Do you know what the capabilities are of the local emergency responders? Have you talked to them? I mean, it's a very entertaining proposition, especially when we're talking about wildland fire, to have the fire chief of the local volunteer fire department explain to people when they're not coming. Too much fire, we're not coming. I'm not putting people in harm's way. And that surprises folks because they have a vision of punching up 911 and having the Chicago Fire Department show up. Okay? Totally unrealistic. That's the two-way street problem. Okay. We are not out there telling people what reality is, nor are we having people ask what reality is. Okay. We need to have that conversation for sure to get there. So I agree with those comments. That's true. Please do not think of this as response. Okay. Response is not all we're talking about here. We're talking about planning. Okay. Planning involves how you deal with the capability gaps of the response in your community. And it will be all over the map. Right? And so just because one community can do it doesn't mean anybody else can do it. So there was a question there.
All right. Thank you. Hi, my name is Allison Butler, and I have a question because you mentioned you were an attorney who does civil rights. Is there an angle? Have there been lawsuits or liability over cities or counties failing to plan or failing to take into consideration the needs of the disability community?
The short answer to the question is an emphatic yes. There's a lot of litigation, okay, against local governments under both the Americans with Disabilities Act as well as basic civil rights, including that aspect of civil rights we tend to talk about as environmental justice. It's just a different name for the same idea. Yeah, so the short answer is yes, there's been a ton of litigation over those issues. A lot of that litigation settles, so you don't see appellate court decisions that lay it out, but there are plenty of them that do exist. I'll give you some examples. You've got, currently you have federal judges supervising emergency planning activities in some very large communities. Okay. Federal judges are smart, but you don't want them supervising anything. Okay. So, and the reason they're doing it is because the judge goes, I don't have an expectation that you're going to do what I've ordered you to do. So you're going to come in here and you're going to report to me what's going on. And the plaintiffs in the case, which are usually some advocacy group interested in AFN or otherwise, is going to tell me what you're not doing. And we'll have a conversation about that. And keep in mind that federal judges can throw you in jail. So pay attention. You don't want to make them mad. So there've been a lot of those cases, tons of them. You had several large cities love to make the argument that I don't need to have such specific planning because I've got lots of assets and I'll just take care of it when it comes up. And judges have universally said nonsense. If you cannot demonstrate to me, okay, that you have made specific arrangements with this segment of the community to deliver services, then your plan's inadequate. And that means you have to involve folks in that. You have to validate what's in your plan. New York did it, got in a world of trouble in Superstorm Sandy. You know, we all saw pictures of, you know, people in their wheelchairs sitting in water, waiting for specialized buses to show up and take them to shelters. Well, New York got sued for that. Part of the defense was, well, it was a big storm. We couldn't anticipate how bad it was going to be. Okay. And the judge said, no, that's not my point. Your point is you never involved that community to see whether your plan was worth the paper it was written on. You never asked them if it was going to work. You never asked them if these buses would work. You never verified how long it was going to take to use those buses. You never verified that you could communicate to people adequately on where to get the bus and how to get there. Okay. So because of those kind of failings, absolutely, they were found liable and insurance companies pay a lot of money out. So you don't end up with a lot of cases that have appellate law, but there are a lot of cases. So thank you. I'm around if you want to talk some more. Sadie has my email. So if you want to ask questions, let me know.
Thank you all so very, very much for engaging these three big conversations with some really wonderful thinkers from many different places. Let's give every single facilitator in the room one more round of applause, please. Is difficult to wind up a conversation. So I do hope that if something's carrying you into our next break, you will follow that. Also, please remember that if there are any questions that you didn't have a chance to ask, or you didn't feel like you had the opportunity to really, follow up on, please put them either into the chat or write them down and add them to our question box at the registration table. We hope that you will also take a moment as we give you a little bit of space to go outside. It's gorgeous here. Those of you who are virtual, stand up, get away from your device for a second. And take a moment with those cards that were given out at the beginning of the conference to think about, what do you want to start? What do you want to stop? What do you want to continue? What do you want to change? And what belongs on your 3, 2, 1? I think I over anticipated in the room last time, but there are snacks at this break, I believe, where we've been holding food before. So if that will refresh you, please go ahead and get that. We will reconvene again at 10:40. And thank you all so much for a great engagement. And as a reminder for anybody who stayed here at the hotel, checkout is at 11 o'clock. So if you would like to do that during this break or have not had a chance to do so yet, please remember to include that in your priorities.
What are we doing?
Back, we are.
Welcome back, everybody.
Yes.
I don't know. Hey, hold on to that. I don't need that. Did it make a noise? I don't know. There you go. Oh, that definitely made a noise. Hello. Oh, when it's time to cause it. Hello, welcome back, everybody. I hope you're finding, I hope you're feeling refreshed and ready for our last session of the day covering community engagement. And with that, I am going to pass it over to my good friend, Amy.
Thank you, Mike. If I can invite Ricardo, Camille, Olga, Rocio, Andrew, and I think maybe there's one more person who is going to be among our final facilitator group. Well, Olga, Rocio, Andrew, Ricardo, Camille, and is there a sixth? Just five. Awesome. We are going to have our third interactive session as a way to sort of encourage ongoing conversations with community connectors. It's been really great already to have that concept of cultural navigators, community connectors, be part of this conversation about planning for disruptions instead of hazards. And we want to make space for both our facilitators to introduce themselves and specifically the topics that they would like to discuss with you all. But again, as we think about independence, really expand and think about while we have been guided and informed by especially disability advocates in this lane, independence is an access and functional need that people with many other lived experiences also are facing during disasters on a regular basis. And it was just so exciting to hear the passion in the room talking about where that intersectionality happens. So I will stop talking now as well and invite our facilitators to give sort of their 4-minute elevator pitch about how we're going to start the conversations. And this time there isn't a break, because we just had one, between the facilitator introductions and trying to get back into those small group sort of discussion spaces. So once again, if you are at one of those tables that has a yellow strip of tape through the middle, we will either move the chairs back to where they were, and some of them it looks like have stayed in place. So we're getting back into that formation here in just a moment. But let's go ahead and start with Ricardo and Camille, followed by Olga and Rocio, and then Andrew.
Thank you, Amy. And yeah, good morning, everybody. I'm Ricardo Perez, and this is.
Good morning. My name is Millard.
And so we're with the Larimer County Office of Emergency Management. And my role is a community inclusion and engagement emergency management coordinator. Yeah, I can share a little bit at our breakout sessions, a little bit about more of our role within emergency management and Camille's role as the resiliency and preparedness coordinator, also an emergency management coordinator. But yeah, so just overall, I think it would be good to share a little bit about, how the history of Larimer County emergency management started. So after the 2013 flood and 2014 Hyde Park fire, there was a big need, obviously, in local disasters. So our current director, Lori Hodges, was kind of tasked with the opportunity to create this emergency management program. And she made it very clear that it was at that point, the program needed to encompass recovery, response, and recovery, and as well as build community resilience. So that's why we're both up here. I've been with the county a little bit for 2 years, and Camille as well. But our program, that's what we try to do at Larimer County OEM. But it's a lot of work with partners, obviously, as we'll get to share a little bit about our experiences, our successes, and kind of what we're trying to work on as well. Things are not perfect, but we'd love to share how we're making a priority to engage folks, right? Plan with folks. Also take the kind of responsibility ourselves to understand some of the barriers that may be out there with in planning with our community, taking the time, kind of doing that never ending work that we both love to do. But yeah, we'll share a little bit about that. And also it's a relationship with the community in a sense. You know, we really encourage that self-responsibility with the community, that everybody kind of has that ability to be independent, right? But we understand that from an emergency preparedness, response, and recovery phase, there's those folks that need that extra assistance. So that's really who we try to engage in the community engagement, resilience work that we're doing. So yeah, we'll share a little bit of our ideas, and I think Camila will share a little bit too.
I think Ricardo very well summed up exactly all the work we're doing for now until we get into our lovely little breakout groups. But in the theme, the dad jokes that have been going on, I did prepare a little disaster dad joke. What type of disaster does a horse love to cause? A tornado. Thank you. Okay. So we look forward to our little breakout session and teaching you about how we are doing community engagement that is with the community and not for the community. So please come join us.
Cualitlanesi, buenos días. Good morning. Nanitoka Olga Gonzalez. Olga Gonzalez is my name. And before we get started, I just want to quickly recognize that we are in the traditional homelands of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Ute, Apache, and many other tribes who call this land their home, and the many others who continue to live and work here. I am also the executive director of Cultivando. We are a nonprofit organization that works directly with the Spanish-speaking community, primarily in Adams County. But as a result of the pandemic, our work has also expanded statewide. We first worked with Sadie and her department to train folks around the state in our promotora model so they could provide needed services and information to farm workers. And I'll let Rocio introduce herself.
Morning, everybody. My name is Rocio Franco, and I'm the Associate Director for Cultivando.
And so what we're going to share with you today, actually, we're pretty excited. We were also trained in the how to prepare for anything process. And so we just got back from doing a training in Alamosa yesterday, and we were prepared to do this training in Spanish for many of the farm workers who are focused on the mushroom farms who were hit during the pandemic. Many of them, when you look at all of the CMIS categories, every single one of those was affected. And so we showed up to do this training, and we found out that many of the attendees were not literate in Spanish, and their first language was Mayan. And so we had a trilingual training, and on the fly, Rocio and I adapted to make it more accessible and do more hands-on and more examples and do more storytelling. So it's really about how sometimes we have to shift gears to meet the needs of the community. Although we had done our research, we weren't anticipating that piece of it, but it still turned out to be amazing, and they want us to come back and do more of these trainings. And so I think for us, it's a lesson learned on how to be adaptable and meet the needs. And so we're happy to share our experiences and answer questions about how to work with community when looking at their definition of emergencies and disasters, which may differ from our own, and also when there are language and cultural differences. So looking forward to chatting with all of you. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Holder. I am the Community Relations Manager for Xcel Energy here in Northern Colorado. Xcel Energy is a proud service provider for electricity and natural gas in 7 different states. Here in Colorado, we have about 1.6 million electric customers and 1.5 million natural gas customers. We are leading the clean energy trend here in the United States. By 2030, we have 80% carbon reduction goals, where 80% of our energy matrix is going to be made from renewable energy. And we're excited to present that and be a proud utility partner for a number of your communities that you guys represent. What I want to talk about here today, and it's going to be summed up here with one word, is collaboration. Critical infrastructure is the backbone for a lot of your guys' communities, as we all know, and is a life-sustaining need for every individual in this room and a lot of the individuals that you represent. Having critical infrastructure at the table for your emergency managers, for a lot of the different organizations that you guys represent is key as we start to respond to different natural disasters or any other things that can possibly take place in our communities. That collaboration is networking, making sure that you have the right communication person to get on the phone with. You know, a lot of the companies like Xcel Energy is a large company. It's hard to get information from. We kind of work in silos of excellence is what I like to call them. But to have that right person to be able to get on the phone, to be able to get you up-to-date information for what our needs are to restore, to get service provided back to the community as fast as possible. We've had a number of different examples here in the state of Colorado alone on how we were able to partner with local communities to ensure that we had deliberate, and fast restoration of energy, which was extremely, highlighted with the Marshall Fire and other different area, things that Ricardo even mentioned here in Larimer County. And we're just proud to be at the table. I don't want to speak for every utility, but I know that most of the utility partners that we work with here in the state of Colorado and throughout the United States would love to be able to be at your guys' table to communicate and to collaborate and just work together as a unit. And that's I'm excited to have that conversation with everybody. Thanks, everyone.
Huge thank you to this cadre of facilitators. We'll give you all a chance to sort of move into our 3 locations and let everybody else do the same. I will give a quick little bell ring when we are ready to start the 20 minutes of the first session. But just as a reminder, please write down your questions, engage quickly. These are fast moving, but I heard so many amazing topics within that. Language inclusion, the opportunity to use training as a way to understand barriers and something new about our communities, designing community preparedness programs that really invest in what everybody can do, the critical infrastructure. There's a lot there to talk with these community connectors about. So get your questions, get your chairs, get your facilitators, and enjoy this last interactive session.
Can everyone hear us? Okay, I think this is our group here, right? Okay. So yeah, like I shared, we were prepared to do this amazing training, and then we showed up with these worksheets, and then we find out that folks there are not literate. Some of them were not literate. Rocio understood that when we had asked folks to sign in, and there was a lady who was like, oh, like, where do I sign in? And, it seemed that she might have been a little embarrassed or shy about it. And so Rocio said, oh, no problem. Like, tell me your name and I'll check you in, that sort of thing. And then as I started to speak,
if we can invite again, everybody to sort of move towards their small groups. We've got a lot of ambient noise right now, but I think
maybe we were early. I don't know. Anyway, so then as I started to speak, there was a gentleman that stood next to me and he wasn't speaking Spanish. And then we realized that he was speaking a couple of Mayan languages. But in the end, it turned out that most folks did understand Spanish, so that wasn't necessary to have the interpreter. But I don't know how many of you have taken the how to prepare for anything training. And so a lot of what we were taught was not going to work in this community. It was very heavy on these worksheets that you all have seen. And so what we did, then we broke up, and as the groups were working, Rocio and I went and asked if they had any questions. We asked them, like, what kinds of emergencies, disasters, disruptions exist here? How did these things affect you? So it became more of a dialogue rather than writing and reading. And I know we were told not to use like chart paper, but we ended up doing that to explain things and draw pictures and things like that. And so in the end, it worked out. One of the things that worked for us too, as I mentioned, we're based in Adams County, but we were working down in Alamosa, which is not where we're from. We were asked to go there because we already had relationships from our previous work doing trainings to do outreach to farm workers during the pandemic. So we already had a relationship with trusted Latino community leaders who then invited us to come out. They secured a site that was welcoming and familiar to the community. They had things like childcare already set up, food. And then we also, as an organization, provided participants with a gift card to honor them for their time. And so it you know, those were some of the lessons learned, that even with the best preparation, sometimes you show up, and I think in any community, literacy levels will differ. Maybe people are more visual. So we were able to adapt the great lessons from how to prepare for anything. And I think we also demonstrated sort of how to respond to anything at the same time. And so I don't know, Rocio, if you wanted to add anything.
Thank you, Olga. I think for me, my takeaway was that flexibility is super, super important. Adaptability as well. And acknowledge that inclusion it's not the same for everybody in every area that we work in. And it's important that we acknowledge that and work with what we have at the moment. I think for us was very humbling moment to come to this community and be able to work and be able to be welcome and be able to provide certain information to them. And for us, it's just how can we come to these, spaces, these areas where we, adapt our information and make it more accessible to everybody.
And the other thing that may differ in Latino communities as well as in our indigenous communities is that it takes more time to do the introduction. It's like sharing a little bit about your own journey, dealing with disasters, disruptions, telling people where you're from. I know that doesn't always happen, but in our communities, it's customary to say your name, where are you from, where did you grow up? And that forms some sorts of connections. And, having icebreakers that are interactive and a lot of, storytelling and listening to people's stories and, honoring where they're coming from. And then what you realize is that a lot of people have the strong need to be heard, to be seen. There are a lot of gaps right now. So obviously, after the incident with the pandemic, we learned that many of them obviously had a hard time accessing resources because there weren't interpreters. The information providers didn't speak their language. Because they lost their jobs, then the bills started piling up. There were medical needs that they're still trying to pay for, not a lot of resources for making medical care accessible. And many of them also, we learned, have still not been paid, even after years. So now there's like the legal component wrapped into that. So it's a lot of injustice. These are the people who provide food for us, for our tables, and yet they're not cared for. And sometimes we think times have changed, but even during the pandemic, we saw that people were fired when they got COVID and weren't compensated, or, women are still not allowed to take breaks to use the restroom, because if you're not bending over, then you're not working. And if you're standing and you're not there, they assume you're not working, you don't get paid. So it's a snowball effect. And so obviously many of these farm workers have many children, many mouths to feed. And so there are those things that also come up. And so there's consequences that linger, as you know, after these emergencies and disasters and things like that. So we are open to any questions that you all might have, or maybe if you've encountered something similar, you're trying to get resources and information to a community that maybe you're not as familiar with, or any stories you'd like to share of how you've addressed those situations.
Elizabeth Billingsley, Oklahoma City County Health Department. With these farm workers, have you all run into any? I work with trafficking survivors, sex and labor. Have you run into any issues with labor trafficking?
Labor trafficking.
Have they run into any issues?
Not us personally, but we do know that it exists. Thankfully, they have an agency called Colorado Legal Services that they are able to turn to for those types of questions. And having an acquaintance who works with human trafficking, they've made us aware that it is definitely a huge problem in the fields. And even like instances of people not getting paid, sexual assaults, all of the things. So unfortunately, it's too rampant in our country and wherever you go. Yeah. Somebody else.
You know, we all encounter literacy level of diversity in all of the training that we do. So could you talk more about how you effectively use pictures instead of text in your discussions and what you do, and how we can incorporate some of what you learned?
Well, one example, and again, we weren't necessarily prepared for that, but one thing that we typically do just in general, for instance, at the end, like you might have seen it at a training, I draw like a gingerbread person with a heart. And so at the end, like to get feedback, I'm like, what are you thinking about? Like, as you look at the head, and some people who can write, they'll put it on a sticky note and stick it there. Like, based on the information you've received, what have you learned? What are you thinking about? With the heart, what are you feeling now as a result of this information? And then the hands are like, what are you going to do with this information going back? So I think for this session, that was the picture. But I think in the past, it's like, you can even ask people, when you think of a community that is supported in the event of a disruption, what does that look like? And you can have like chart paper laid out on tables and say, draw what that looks like. And then they come up with the most beautiful things. I've seen where they've drawn like flying dragons, magical dragons that are coming here to support them and provide them the resources that they need. And so I think it invites people to do different things. And a lot of people, just the storytelling, where it doesn't have to be the written word. I think that's a very mainstream way that we've all done. You know, all of us who've had the opportunity to go to college, for instance. Sometimes we forget that there are people that that's not their way, and that you can gain the same amount of information by listening intentionally to stories. So even instead of doing like, okay, let's go down this sheet, and is it a personal, regional disaster? What is it? And then how does it affect electricity and transportation? It's like, tell us about the emergency and what happened and what were you missing? And then other people chime in. And then it's like, what resources were available to you? You know, and they're like, oh, I went to the church and they gave this. My neighbors made masks when there weren't masks available. And you just come up with so many nuggets of information that don't have to necessarily be written down on paper. And so for you, the facilitator, then you can be the scribe and report back everything that you heard. So after this training, like Rocio and I processed, and we wrote a ton of notes when it was fresh. So I'm going to share a lot of feedback with Sadie and Aaron Titus about how we can adapt to different communities' needs. Anybody else had a question? Or
Before we jump into the next question, I would like to add that Olga and I were discussing adding maybe small short videos with samples that they can, sorry. Okay, So for us, it was how can we implement or add short videos as a part of the storytelling, so they can also see themselves and these people, you know, going through a situation and looking for a solution as well, for, you know, to complement that visual component as well. And I think we go back to the storytelling again to be able for them to connect with the stories and see other people in community as an example of going through a hard time, but then also looking collectively for that solution.
I know in working with some of the indigenous populations, when you talk about the storytelling, one of the things we've learned is that you just have to sit and listen, because when Uncle starts talking, he's going to talk a long time, and it's going to be like, oh, the tree over there, this is what that symbolizes. And you do have to have patience with the indigenous, but you learn so much about the culture and how to work with individuals. But patience is really key, because then it gets insulting if you don't listen to the whole story. And so, I'm fascinated that someone speaks Mayan that came to your thing, because you know that it's not something you hear all the time, but it must have been equally educational just to be able to learn how to do that. But that's one of the things we learned, is just you have to sit and listen and be attentive, because they know.
Thank you. That is such an excellent point, because I think in the way we were all conditioned in this country in mainstream culture, it's like quick bullet points, beginning to end, A through Z, move people along. And so you're trying to get through an agenda, and you can do that, but you may miss a lot of information. And so you do have to come prepared. So that was the other challenge for us. It's like, you have to do this in 2 hours. I'm like, we can do introductions in 1 hour. You know, we had 29 people at this training. We were expecting 20 to 25, and they showed up 29. And so I was like, well, then we have to immediately say, okay, what can we cut back on? But traditionally, when we do our work in community, we give it the time that it takes, and we might move people along. And as you said, if you don't listen to someone, that could be seen as disrespectful, and then you break the trust and there's no relationship, and then you don't get another chance. And so, yeah, being mindful of that and those cultural values is super important. So thank you for elevating that.
Just an online comment from Daryl Schaefer. It's kind of what we were just talking about right here. Oh, wait, there's a new one. I'll have to look at this in a second. So he said indigenous cultures treat elder stories with respect. That's kind of what you were just talking about there. And I have a new one that just is coming in. If it comes in, there it is. And basically, so he's saying the same thing that really you guys just said, where, you know, you don't want to get to the point attitude. You do need to just, give it time.
Yeah, so I think it's our job to pull out those bits of information and really give time to those stories. So, and I think obviously it's important if you have, in that case, one of the organizers happened to be Mayan, and he speaks, so he ends up speaking 4 languages, English, Spanish, and 2 Mayan dialects. And so he was checking in with them like, are all my people understanding is the same? Yes. And then one of the other organizers said, I think they all understand Spanish though, so you don't have to go from Spanish to Mayan and then English. And so by asking, then we realized they all speak Spanish. So it was like 27 of them were Mayan, who had an indigenous as a first language, an indigenous language, and then 2 were from Mexico, and Spanish was their first language. So then everybody was like, okay, but they were super prepared for anything, and then I think it also mattered that they had a relationship with him, because sometimes we find that, as somebody else had said at our table, you might have the greatest information and resources, but if the community doesn't have a relationship to you, then they may not trust it, they may not hear it. And particularly in our indigenous communities, where people may come and research us and ask us questions, and then we don't really get anything in return. So there's that distrust of you're just coming to extract information. And so for us, that's why as an organization, offering those gift cards was a reciprocal relationship. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your investment in being involved in supporting your community in the event of disasters. And I think for us, it was really special because we definitely believe in equity and inclusion at our organization. We specifically work with people from the communities we're in. That is the criteria. You must live in the same community you're working in. So it's a very unique model. And of course, it helps if the people who are doing the presenting also look like the community and speak the language. So without anticipating that and not knowing what I was walking into and hearing them speak their language, I was able to share a few words in my language. And so there was that immediate connection. So.
You guys are creating chat online. So a fair amount of chat. There's a question or a comment / questions from Rachel. For those of us who have some neurodivergent characteristics, like not being able to sit still or losing focus over time, do you have any suggestions for how to behave with respect, but also take care of ourselves? And then there's another one after this.
So the other thing we do is we have agreements. I know that that's not part of the training for how to prepare for anything, but we write them down because we say we care about everyone participating. We want to hear from everyone. What do we all need to agree on to ensure that you can show up as your full self? So that gives us an opportunity for folks to say, I'd like to move around. I'd like to have breaks. And I think typically in our trainings, although we didn't do it this time, we might have like little stress balls. We might have Play-Doh. We encourage people to get up and meet their needs. We also have interactive activities. And I know that again, the training as is doesn't allow for a lot of that besides the going like musical chairs at the different tables. And so think of those kinds of interactive activities that get people up and moving. And these trainings have serious information, but it doesn't have to be a serious training. We always write down, let's have fun as one of our agreements. And so then people feel at ease and feel included. So that's one of the things that we have done that has been helpful.
Let me just add a little bit to that. The importance also to have two facilitators at the same time. That helps a lot because one can be presenting the information and the other facilitator can be attending to the needs of the group and actually, seeing around and, highlight those needs in the process of the meeting. And I think it's super helpful to have two people in the same, in the same space to accommodate everything that comes up.
Thank you. This is just a comment, and this is talking about kind of the respect discussion we were having before. And it's from Charlotte. I think actions like land acknowledgements, like the speakers did at the start, can be a good way to show respect.
Yes, definitely. And we just arrived last night, so I wasn't sure if it had happened, but it doesn't hurt. And I think the other thing is it really shouldn't be us Indigenous folks that do the land acknowledgement. I mean, we know we're here. I think it's really our allies to say that they recognize that, but to have an authentic land acknowledgement must be followed with action, right? So because we acknowledge this is the ways in which we engage the Indigenous community. This is the way that we give back and engage in relationships of reciprocal benefit and respect.
Thank you so much to our facilitators for those quick conversations. We always hate to cut them off, but as the facilitators rotate, feel free to make your own sort of movements to keep limber, keep cool in this conference space. Thank you all so much. I'll give you a ding for session 2 as the facilitators get to move.
You think I could figure an on off button? My bad. Good morning, guys. My name is Camille Millard. I work for the Larimer Office County of Emergency Management. I specialize in preparedness and resiliency. So what that looks like on my day-to-day is a lot of community outreach. Normally Ricardo and I are the face that goes out to any and all public outreach events. Some are preparedness based, some aren't, and it's a great place for us to interact and try to work on rebranding the name of what government trust is these days. Additionally, I run 2 programs. I am currently creating a community education program. That'll be about 6 to 8 modules, which the first, 6 to 8 modules that will start with preparedness, resiliency, things of that nature, but then lead into soft skills buildings that are equally as important after disaster happens. So leadership, civic engagement, and community building are my key areas of focus. On top of that program, I'm currently running the Larimer Connects Community Hub program. So that is a program that I find community champions similar to the cultural brokers that Jocelyn talked about yesterday. And these are people within the community that know and have general knowledge about the previous histories of community, or are just willing to have extra time. They might have just moved to the neighborhood, but are volunteering this time. Additionally, these people help us pick locations within the community that are recognized convergence spaces already. So we're not making them go somewhere new. It's community space that they already utilize. And this is where we will post disaster information on top of our regular forums, such as text, email, Snapchat. I mean, not Snapchat. I wish we could get into Snapchat. I meant social media. So these community hubs are a key aspect for us helping and starting that process of planning with the community instead of the general used concept of for the community. So these cultural brokers or community champions, whatever you want to call them, they really help us decide what's actually going to work for the specific communities. So they're mostly just in rural Larimer County right now, but this year we do plan on moving them into urban.
Hola, buenos días. Voy a hablar un poquito en español. Aquí con la Oficina de Manejo de Emergencias, lo que hacemos, lo que platicó Camilo, va a ser, nosotros nos enfocamos en crear la relación. No worries. Thank you, Sadie. Thank you. Yeah, so the work that we do in engaging with the community and providing public information and build community resilience that Camille just mentioned about, really the goal is to kind of build that genuine relationship, knowing that we're local government. We understand that there's a level of trust with local government that we need to navigate, we need to improve, but knowing that, right, the intention of why we do things, of educating folks, of having that mutual respect when we do engage partners in underserved communities, when we want to learn more about how we engage folks with disabilities, how do we improve our systems, sharing that, you know, in a humble way, but also in a kind of curious way, but kind of trying to make it easy for other folks to work with us and for us to work with folks. That's really the goal that we're trying to do, is trying to make it easy from a public information standpoint, from an education standpoint, from relationship building, knowing that there's communities in Larimer County and obviously in other jurisdictions that get hit harder in emergencies. So that's really what we're trying to do. Another way that we're trying to make some ground on that is understanding the linguistic profile of the county. So we're working with our school districts to try to understand what languages are spoken in their school districts in Fort Collins, Loveland, and Estes Park, and seeing how we can really target and have an understanding of the other languages that are. We know that Spanish is the most the second most spoken language in the county. But we now know from those conversations with the school districts that Vietnamese is up there, that Arabic is up there, Mandarin. We have CSU, Colorado State University in Fort Collins, that is a huge international hub, right? So now we have a better understanding of the languages that are spoken. And then the Reachwell application that you heard about yesterday. So Larimer County implemented that as the way to provide emergency alerts in 109 languages last year. So one of the things that we're promoting when we're out in the community is getting people signed up for Reachwell, knowing that that's a way for people that speak other languages other than English to sign up and receive the emergency alert information and education in the languages that they prefer. So that's an important aspect, but we also, we try to have a presence in the community. Also, it's Camille and I doing the engagement work, but our office is an office of 6 within Larimer County Office of Emergency Management. We have a Google Calendar that we came up with of local events that we want to be out. Again, with the priority of those, cultural events or other events that really provide a space for people to engage in. So we have that ability to just kind of share the work a little bit. But something that came out of the COVID realm, the recovery realm, was we started coordinating with our other county folks from different departments that have engagement roles. So we started to meet informally just to try and coordinate, like, hey, I see the health department is going to this outreach event in this community in Estes Park, and we probably should be there too. But we also need to have that shared understanding of who's going out in the community so that we don't overtax our community when we're doing surveys or just being present. Just having a little bit of background coordination has helped us a lot. And then we did a community resilience assessment in the fall of last year. So that was just a baseline to try to understand the level of community resilience in the county. And one of the things that we found out from that is we asked the question, do folks think that systems are in place for people with disabilities to be able to evacuate in an emergency? And we heard loud and clear that over 60% thought that the systems weren't there. So since then, we've been really making that a priority. How do we engage folks? First, organizations that serve people with disabilities. So we've connected kind of with our local centers of independent living to see how we can kind of share, again, our story in a humble approach. This is what we're looking at. This is what we're thinking of. These are some of the gaps. Is there any chance to be able to kind of work together or learn from y'all, from the work that you're doing every day, and see how we can kind of work together on providing more accessible resources. So we're doing that, but we're also connecting with our ADA coordinator at the county. So yeah, we're lucky enough to be able to have our ADA coordinator really plugged into our EOC whenever we have an exercise, and then any kind of preparedness information that we've been trying to also make our website a little bit more accessible. Going away from PDFs, having contrast on our website. I do the website editing, so I know I have a lot of work to do for our office, but yeah, that just to keep that kind of in short is we know that there's things that we need to improve, and we're working on some things. Some things are definitely not perfect, but we're definitely trying to put our energy towards trying to improve the ways that we engage with the community. But I think we'd like to open it up to folks to see if there's any questions, comments, or even if you have any ideas or any work that y'all are doing currently in your organization's jurisdictions. Yeah.
In Oklahoma, is it on? At Oklahoma City County Health Department, we utilize some of our local universities, and sounds like you have a local university. If we are, for example, running a large clinic and we need in-person translators. So I don't know if you all would have any events where you would need anything like that per se, maybe at a recovery center or a family assistance center or something like that. But a university like you have is a really good place to tap people for translation services that there from all over the world. And so that's kind of what we've learned, and it's worked out really well for us.
Thank you for sharing that. That's great. I think a key thing that we've seen a lot is identifying partners that are either at the table already, but we're not utilizing them enough, or partners that completely aren't at the table at all yet. This past Christmas, you might have heard in the news, we had the refugee crisis that happened in Denver, and Larimer County was one of the communities that reached out and was helping feed and find long-term housing and situations like that. And what we realized from that process were there were a bunch of communities and organizations that stepped up that weren't a part of our VOAD. So these really untapped resources that we didn't, or we might have known that were there, but weren't willing to be in this VOAD space. And now we're definitely utilizing them and trying to rebuild our VOAD. I think everyone kind of who has a VOAD realizes after a disaster, especially we love peace times, but the VOAD kind of trickles off. So there's no good disaster, no wasted good disaster. So we're in this revitalization period where we're reaching back out to organizations that were at the table and making sure that they still want to be. And that looks like offering food at our meetings and making sure that these meetings aren't just food and show up, but with like what was mentioned, like Melissa's speech, a specific point to your meetings. So additionally, we've heard about how we're preparing people. We've heard about how we're reaching out to people, but we're also trying to actualize our plans. Each year, starting this year, we are picking one community and doing an evacuation drill with that community. So this year we picked Pinewood Springs. Pinewood Springs is in our southern part of the county, and in a I can't remember, it's either 2014 or 2016, weirdly, we did an unmet needs survey, and Southern Larimer County was really unconnected. So this is parts of the area that they have the resources there, they're just not quite sure how to connect them. Unlike Northern Larimer County, where we see the urban areas, but also all these communities that were really affected by Cameron Peak. So we focused heavily on them. So that's in Pinewood Springs this year. And then additionally, we are using like our hubs areas to find these spaces besides just community town halls. That's the convenient spots. We're using libraries. So the Estes Park Library, the Berthoud Library, the Red Feather Library, which are all three very different levels of library. The Red Feather Library is a part of this nonprofit organization called the North 40 Mountain Alliance. The North 40 Mountain Alliance is a great example of the Community Hubs project really running on its own within that grassroots-led community. It became a nonprofit. It got a grant to have I am a fast speaker and I will slow it down. I apologize greatly. This nonprofit was able to get a grant for solar panels to make their building more redundant for that community, since it is our resilience hub in that area. Additionally, they applied for a grant for satellite service and internet to help with the information spreading in that area, especially since it's in a more rural area that sometimes has service, sometimes don't. And in today's age, we use the connectivity as almost this crutch to lean on, that it's like we always won't have internet. We won't always have phone. We won't always. So we partner with our the Aries Ham Radio Department. So that's a volunteer group of people who they have ham radios and are willing to help us pass emergency messaging if email and social media and satellite is down. So that's just other ways that we're trying to be more resilient. Yeah.
Can you talk slowly about community connector agreements that you do have in place and how they've actually worked? Specific examples, but slowly. The captioner is way behind you.
So specific examples, not to disappoint you, I have been in charge of this program for the last 8 months. So the specific examples would look like Larimer exercises that we have the community hubs come to the EOC and the connectors get to meet other connectors to make that network stronger. There hasn't quite yet, besides what I was talking about with the North 40, where they are a hub that became a nonprofit that's been utilized for the disaster information aspect, because this program, it was built and then COVID happened and decimated everything, as COVID decimated everything everywhere else. So we're also, I think Larimer is in this lovely stage of rebuilding stronger the networks and frameworks that were laid pre-COVID, especially with new employees getting brought in like Ricardo and I. But the agreements are very informal, because I don't want to scare these community connectors away with a bunch of formal, time heavy agreements, because these, like we've heard, volunteerism is way down. And these are also sometimes our volunteer fire chiefs and our volunteer paramedics and EMS people in the area, or a single mother who is willing to step up into this space, but also is uncertain about what we're requiring from her. So I'm trying not to be, here's this long document, sign your life away. You will be, especially these disasters are affecting their community. So it's finding someone who's willing to potentially put the community in front of their family. So, and we never ask them to not evacuate, stay with your hub. The evacuation zone, you must stay there. No. But just, it's a fine line between finding someone who's willing to take on extra work in an era where everyone is overburdened just because of a bunch of other stuff that we don't have time to get into today. But I hope that kind of answered. Don't have official specifics yet.
And I think we might have a minute or two. So, and just to build on that with some of the community connectors that we have that or the connection to our Spanish speaking community. It's like Camille mentioned, it's really an informal agreement. Just getting to know you kind of, you know, I was born in Mexico, so I'm an immigrant myself. So as a person of color going to, you know, a community that is, you know, Spanish speaking, I kind of, I have the privilege to be able to step in that space and kind of create a connection that might be a little quicker. But it's, again, having that informal space and sharing kind of what we're trying to do, our intentions, and knowing that we're there to help build community and help in a way. And kind of having that informal structure helps a lot, just because that's kind of how normal, you know, relationships are. They might be informal in most cases. That way we can kind of blend a little bit of kind of that government relationship and, you know, kind of make it a little bit more human in a way. But yeah, it's making that kind of informal agreement with some community partners. So in Estes Park, the school district family liaison has really been a huge connector for us, that he basically puts together a Day of the Dead event in the fall for the Spanish speaking community, and rallies, you know, in Estes Park, maybe 800, 1,000 people. So for the past few years, we've been able to kind of get plugged into those events, seeing how we can do. I know they just shared a little bit about how to prepare for everything workshop. So we did one in March here in Estes Park that we had Spanish interpretation at, and that contact at the school district was huge. So yeah, it's just making those connections.
Thank you again, facilitators. I'd like to invite you to move to your third speed dating round with the community engagement part of our interactive sessions. We really do appreciate the conversations that get started, but hopefully you're left with that little bit of angst that, like, this needs to go on longer. It certainly does, and we hope it will. But we'll give folks just a quick chance to move to the next place, maybe grab some water. Absolutely. Been talking a lot. And then we'll have our last 20-minute session. Thank you.
I can also look at the background.
Okay. Well, I know you guys are just kind of rolling from session to session, but I'll get this thing going for you guys. As you guys know, my name is Andrew Holder. I'm with Xcel Energy. I should put that closer to my mouth so you guys can actually hear me. So my name is Andrew Holder. I'm with Xcel Energy. I'm the Northern Colorado area manager for community relations and local government affairs. I have 6 other counterparts in the state of Colorado within Xcel Energy, and we all kind of work in different counties that we are assigned to. What I would, I kind of touched on it when I was up here at the podium previously, but the biggest thing that I want to highlight today is collaboration. Collaboration with your community relations manager to ensure you have an up-to-date contact if an escalated situation happens. And what would a community relations manager do with this collaboration? Well, it's a 3-pronged approach, which kind of goes into the larger picture of how we respond to energy outages. First and foremost, we respond to critical infrastructure within the community we serve energy to. How do we know what that critical infrastructure is? Some of it's accredited, some of the hospitals and stuff, but how do we know the nursing homes? They don't have the same requirements at the state level that some of our community hospitals do. We don't know that information unless you collaborate and engage with your community relations manager to ensure that our control center and our operations teams have those identified on a list and readily available. The second part of it is working with our customers to register on their Xcel Energy bill that they are a critical need customer. A critical need customer in our definition is a customer who has life-sustaining equipment that has energy needs in their home. We do not have access to those hospital records. Your industry, your energy partner shouldn't have access to those. I don't want access to those. So they have to have, some skin in the game in regards to self-diagnosing themselves on our energy map so that we know in an escalated situation where those folks are on our grid. And third and foremost on how we restore energy is largest customer count. If we have a feeder going west and there's 1,000 folks that are on that feeder, and we have 2 folks that are on this distribution line, pun intended, we're going to spend our energy going to get that energy restored on the 1,000 folks and then send resources over for the 2 folks over here on the east side. That's generally how we've done that. That is, from a common sense aspect, it kind of makes sense to everybody when I kind of state that on how we go about that. But the first 2 things ties into what the theme I was talking about is collaboration. We need our customers to let us know if they have equipment needs, and we need to know what the critical infrastructure is in a community so that we can prioritize those. Absolutely.
So if a customer lets you know what their needs are, what can we expect in return specifically from the utility? What's that mean? So, let's say I'm on a respirator, battery dependent. I have 4 hours. What's it gonna do for me if I let you know that? So what? Oh, one mic.
Great question. So what we'll do with that information is there's 2 parts. One, if there's an escalated situation, you're going to be put on a priority list. What that means is, and there was an example over here when we were talking about the Marshall Fire, where we spent resources to go over there instead of using the customer count versus those 2 meters. If one of those 2 meters over on the east side is a critical need customer, we are going to send a resource over there to get that energy restored as safe and as fast as possible. Yeah. And then the second part is ensuring that you are in touch with our customer care representatives to give you a option B plan if your energy is without power. That option could be generation backup. There's evolving technologies. I was listening to a conversation at the networking event where your Tesla could be used as an interim battery for your house. There's innovative technologies that the customer can do there is funding through the Department of Energy and grant programs where individuals can go and get funds to help assist them get generation back to their home. As the electric utility provider, our state statute has reliability metrics that we have to meet. And I'm proud to say that for the 123 years that Xcel Energy has served the state of Colorado, we have a 99.98% electric reliability rating. That means that 99.98% of the time you turn on that light switch, you should expect power to come in and light that bulb up. So in those situations, we will do everything we can in a safe manner to restore power to that individual.
You know, one of the urban myths that the disability community has lived with for a long time is that the utility will offer priority power return because I live in this grid. And we have learned over and over again that that is not the case. But I hear you saying it is the case. So I'm very confused by this.
I talk loud. I can give you an example, and I can only speak for experiences that I've had previously. But here like I said, I serve Northern Colorado. For example, there's a nursing home over in Weld County. We had an extended outage that took place for about 30 hours. I think you guys all recall last April when we got about 31 inches of snow. It wasn't last April before, 2 years ago. We had 31 inches of snow in one evening, and it prolonged outage because it took out a couple transmission lines, which is, kind of our large capacity energy lines, and it knocked out power for 18 hours. What we were able to do is partner with our local emergency manager to ensure that that nursing home was on a priority list, and they were restored within power within 8 hours, which was much quicker than we were able to restore a lot of the residents in adjacent subdivisions. So I can use that as an example. I know it might not be as quickly as some people would like. Everybody's energy needs are evolving as we get into 2023. Energy, this is just coming off the cuff, but energy is kind of turning into a little bit more of you kind of take it for granted at times. You're so used to having reliable electricity and natural gas services that the infrastructure that gets from generation all the way to that light bulb is a very intricate infrastructure system, and we have to operate that as safely as possible. And we will work with our community partners to ensure that we restore, electricity as fast as possible. But, there's been some pretty escalated situations here in Colorado. I hope that answered your question.
Right? And in some of our communities, because of our cultural values, we need to spend more time than 10 minutes to get to know us.
And as we start talking about energy in the future, obviously Xcel Energy is leading the clean energy transition. We're going to be 80% renewable by 2030 with wind and solar. But what we can do, and we've been doing this intermittently throughout our territory, is building microgrids. Sure that there is short-sighted energy backup or community that. And that conversation can only happen with, again, to the theme of this is collaboration. If you have a number of folks that are in a certain area that have critical needs, we can figure out a different way to make sure that they have redundant power, two-way feed, if you will, a local solar array that gives them power on a day. There's a lot of different options on the table that I can talk about all day. I'm the energy guy, so of course I could talk about energy all day, but it's just all about collaboration. And I got Deb Watts with us today. She is our emergency manager liaison with Xcel Energy. She provides training to the community relations managers, and if we have a very escalated event, that's the cavalry that comes in to help us out.
We ask this question. So you'll have dinner, you'll have interpretation, you'll have childcare, yes. And for us as an organization,
So renters like high-rise apartment buildings that may not have their individual utility bills, is it the responsibility of those apartment buildings to know they have high density of folks with disabilities or medical equipment? Is it their job to report to you, or do you reach out to them, or how is there, since there are individuals listed?
And I think that's a great question, is if there's a property that has multiple renters, do they know what that, plan B looks like for the dwelling that they are renting for? We're going to work with property owners. Obviously that Xcel Energy bill that they put into their name has a certain account attached to their meter, so they can still place themselves on a critical needs list. And that will still go into our same metric of restoring service. However, we will be able to, again, talking about, for example, some of the places that you represent, they can have a seat at the table to ensure that they have a great plan B. That plan B could be a generator backup that's maintained regularly. There's a lot of different options that we can partner with you guys on, but we can't partner if we don't know that information. You guys kind of running out of juice or what? I don't.
We never run out of juice. We could have go all day long. So back to the individual, we need for you to help the individual have a plan, because it may not be 8 hours. It may be a week in a real disaster. So telling me about a grant or the Department of Energy, that could be 3 years away. What do I do right now if I'm low income? I can't afford a battery station, or I can't operate a generator because I'm in that apartment building that Kurt mentioned. What's your plan in terms of working with all of these to help have a realistic alternative power plan while you do your good work? Because we don't want to operate in a magical way. 8 hours is great, but some people die in 4. So what's the specific plan of your utility to work with those people? A specific plan. They live independently.
Yeah, so you're going to have those one-offs. You're going to have people that are in those multiple unit facilities that need to have a plan. There's no requirement by the planning commission when they move into those areas, right? You didn't have to do anything different to get your rental agreement. What you need to be doing is working with your public health, your emergency management, and the utility. We need to get those people together. So tell us what community you're in. We'll set up a meeting to help get this resolved, because we don't want you to have that stress of what you're going through. We want to provide you with the electricity. That's our goal. Community resilience is what we're about. If we're not providing you with the electricity, then we're not doing our job. So you help us set up a meeting and show up, and we'll help do it. We'll help facilitate that. And if you're having constant problems, then let us know, because we can go to our engineering group and say, hey, from engineering, we're having outages at this site. What do we need to do to reinforce that?
So to your question, we have been asked.
The only thing I would add is, as I know we're spending a lot of time talking about what that plan B is, but I think that just kind of dishevels the conversation of what plan A is, which is the 99.98% electric reliability, and the amount of money and infrastructure that we put in year to year to ensure that our communities that we partner with and serve have reliable electricity. I understand, especially in a lot of the groups that you guys work with, and this conference and the tone of this conference is planning for that alternate B. But as your electric utility provider, we spend all of our resources and most of our energy in the plan A. And that plan A is the 99.98% for electric reliability.
For emergencies, are you all willing to have on hand things you could donate to people or go out and set up for them?
Thank you for that. Absolutely. So I'll give you an example. Before I came over to the community relations role, I was a project manager on our wildfire mitigation team for the previous 6 years. What most of our journeyman linemen are required to have is a standby generator on their truck. So obviously this isn't something widespread that we can just roll out, but we do, if in case of emergency, you have a critical need, well, the first call should be to your emergency responder. If you have an oxygen need or something to that effect, but if you need an energy need to help you with sustainable equipment, you can call your energy provider. We were talking over here about an example during the Marshall Fire where we had sustained outages and we were able to send 15 different generators to individuals' homes. Our journeyman linemen were able to hook those up for the interim solution. We can. I'll give you another example. While we're on the topic of Marshall Fire, we partnered with Walmart, and Walmart donated over, I think it was like 1,500 space heaters, and we were able to distribute those at mass. So finding those collaborative partners to where if we can get a number of generators donated in, because we're going to have a long outage, Amazon, as we're talking, we're sitting here in Estes Park, they're building their 3rd largest distribution center in Loveland, right off I-25. It's their 3rd largest in the world. So it's a large facility. Partnering with those folks like that, if we have an increased need, we can help provide the resources to get those connected up for folks.
Just to further on that generator note, do you guys do commercial like for apartment buildings? Like I know like when during Hurricane Sandy, everything was vertical and elevators and generators that were down in the basement were flooded out. They couldn't. So do you guys do that? Because I know we had to do a missing assignment with Army Corps of Engineers for that. But now that you're here and you're talking generators, I'm just curious if that's something you can do as well.
We don't have those large scale generators just on hand. Obviously, they don't fit in the back of a bucket truck. Most of the generators I was speaking of with our journeyman linemen are small amplifiers that can run a couple pieces of appliance in a home. For large scale like that, we could provide the expertise on how to hook that up, but actually securing that type of generator, we would need a third party. We'd need a third party source to help us with securing that equipment. But we could supply linemen for days to get it hooked up.
Okay, so let's say a huge snowstorm is coming. You're going to get 31 inches. That was the number. I can't imagine that being from Oklahoma. You're going to get 31 inches of snow. It's going to cover most of the county. You've got days in advance getting this. So these third parties, these donations, are you lining that up ahead of time? So it's proactive, not reactive?
Absolutely. We have internal meetings. We have on staff meteorologists that work for Xcel Energy that are always tracking weather patterns. We also go into what we call internally escalated operations, where we start preemptively staffing up in regards to an escalated event. I'll get, for example, here about 2 months ago, we had 90 mile an hour plus winds in Gilpin County. Up here in the, up here in the foothills right there at I-70. And we were able to bring in some resources, and we are part of, and this is going to be a lot of information, but we're part of the Edison Institute, which is a utility partnership group nationally, where we are able to partner with some of our utilities in other states to provide us resources if we need available. We can kind of call in the cavalry to do that. For example, going back to the Marshall Fire example, we brought in over 360 individuals from all the way from Philadelphia, from Florida to South Carolina to help us relight pilots all through Boulder County.
Thank you, facilitators. We're going to wind down our final and third session. Let's take a couple of minutes to sort of bring the room that's here at the conference back into sort of our table groups, because we are heading in toward the end of the conference, and we'll just wind down as a large group again. All of the facilitators of our interactive sessions, one more big round of applause. it's really amazing to be part of a conference setting where, again, we're navigating the challenges of a shared environment, a hybrid environment. All of it is a deeply appreciated effort between both the people who offer the content and those of you engaging it. So even now, as we go towards the end of the conference, it really is our privilege to take the last bit of time together to highlight and celebrate great work that's been going on for access and functional needs integration and community involvement in emergency planning, particularly here in Colorado. So I know that we have a couple of people who may be accepting awards on behalf of someone who wasn't able to come here in person. But for those who are here, can I invite up Chris Rodriguez on behalf of David Ozzy Osborne, who is being recognized. Anybody that we may have from Adams County who can accept on behalf of Kyle Lopez, and Mary Gardner, who is here, and I'm very excited to invite up here to receive an award. Oh, we are going to do these acknowledgements because they've done great work, and it might be that we're catching all of them. Come on, Chris. It'll be great to have somebody to hand stuff to. Mike, over to you.
All right. David Ozzy Osborne, is that? Awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. David is a tireless liaison and advocates for the Access and Functional Needs Committee as a liaison to our field operations section. Whether working with internal or external groups, David looks to find the best outcome for all involved and truly exemplifies the mission and understanding of the Access and Functional Needs Resource Framework. Congratulations, David. And then next up, Kyle Lopez.
Is there any Adams County?
Oh yeah, is there anybody here from Adams County that could accept? Oh, Stephanie. Stephanie is Adams County.
Okay, that's good because, you know, saves us a stamp.
That's awesome. All right, a little bit about Kyle. Kyle has implemented our community preparedness program in Adams County, collaborating with many partners in planning and delivering more than 30 community preparedness events that has focused on vulnerable populations in Adams County. Well done, Kyle. And then thirdly, Mary Gardner. Mary, is anybody here from Wald County? Wait. Paper, rock, scissors, loser comes up. So a little bit about Ms. Gardner. Mary has spent countless hours in Carbon County, Frederick, Firestone, and Dacono, to educate the community on CMIS resources and adapting operations to meet the needs of local hazards. She is also a strong leader to provide more resources for American Sign Language and technical support options for persons who are deaf and hard of hearing. She has shared with our Northeast region best practices to adapt local communities to meet the needs within the CMIS concept. She is an exceptional leader in Carbon Valley and throughout Colorado, as well as sharing accommodation solutions for the Colorado Emergency Management Association Conference. Congratulations, Mary.
Big thank you to folks bringing those awards back to Kyle, to Dave, and to Mary. They really are amazing champions here in Colorado. And if you have an opportunity to speak with them about some of their efforts, it's like an extension of this conference, and we really hope you enjoy it. For right now, we're going to move into closing remarks. And Director Klein, I'd like to invite you up here to offer yours.
Thank you. All right. Well, good afternoon officially, everybody. My name's Kevin Klein. I'm the Director of the Colorado Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. And I am blessed to have just a wonderful team that I get to work with. I want to apologize for not being here for the whole conference. It's silly season for us. I had 3 bills up in the legislature this week, so I had to do the testimony deal and then come back. So my apologies for not being here for the whole thing. But I'm glad I got to be here for this and to offer my appreciation to Sadie and the DHSEM team that brought this conference together. So thank you. Our sponsors, Gable House Granberg. Tim, where's Tim? There he is, Tim. Thank you, Relay Colorado. Big thank you to them. Our distinguished guests, the exhibitors that helped make this happen. And then just wanted to, say how impressed I was with, the conference statistics. 205 participants, 125 in person from 24 states. I am so proud of the progress that we've made in inclusion, which leads to access. We've implemented the whole of community inclusion, integrating, coordinating access and functional needs of the whole community into our preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation planning. And it's not just planning, it's actually integrating it into our response and recovery that we get engaged with. It's great to see our group, Sadie, and all of you coming together to lead the nation in the whole community inclusion by having, the first access and functional needs program supporting emergency managers across the state. We're the only state in the nation still, I believe, that has dedicated funding devoted to access and functional needs inclusion in the emergency management domain. We've been able to provide all 64 counties with support, including, getting the planning engaged at the county level. And our program's been recognized as a national best practice. And that's because of all the work that you do to help us be part of that. I'm also very excited about where we're heading, creating the accessibility resource planning program. We've been supporting all of our DHS team members with accessible materials, meeting, training, and resources. You can't go to one of our meetings without having some sort of accessibility supplement, which is new and great. We've been training all of our team members on alternative formats and accessible formats. Mickey's been spearheading a lot of that, especially in our digital realm, making sure that we're accessible there. We're doing a lot of great work there. We're also going to be ramping up our support to local emergency management partners on how to meet the needs. We're working into that and helping build depth in local communities to ensure that they're focusing on inclusion in their programs. So I want to thank you all for attending the conference. As always, our team at DHSEM is ready to support you before, during, and after an emergency. And I appreciate your investment and time to be here for this conference. So thank you.
I'm a lot shorter. Oh, thank you, Director Klein, for your closing remarks. Want to also send out a big old thank you to the hotel staff, our AV partners here at the hotel staff. They have been very willing to wobble with us and learn from us. So thank you all for bringing up new inclusive opportunities to them as well. Huge thank you to Amy and Mike Houston, Amy both Seaver and Mike Houston for emceeing this. It was a big job and they did very well. I'm not done with dad jokes. I love them all the time. So our Homeland Security Advisory Council, HSAC, HSAC, Access and Functional Needs Subcommittee members for helping us guide us and help in this program. Keep learning what we don't know because we don't know, and bringing in new partners like Holte Bondo, like Larimer County and their new or their innovative approaches that helps us help others that don't have the ability to do that. To be able to pardon me, to be able to create those programs so we could help them at their local level to start seeing how to do it versus just saying we can't do it. We'd like to thank all the virtual attendees as well as all of you taking this valuable time. It's a lot of time we asked you to commit to this approach and then also learn from and learn with each other. Want to thank all the speed dating nonsense that went on. Oh, I'm sorry, it's speed networking. You know, we're always up for the charge. Last year we got feedback, hey, can you do something different like that? And we're like, yes. And what is it going to take? A whole lot of scratchiness, and I'm happy you all were able to go scratchy with us. Sorry you had to do that. It just helps us get better because you'll give us some constructive feedback, because that's the plan with approach. We will learn from you. We also wanted to demonstrate what it looks like to not give up. Somebody asked us to be more inclusive. We did it and it was hard, but we didn't give up. So just try it. And then once you do it, make a plan, work a plan, protect the plan. And the way you do that is keep trying. All right. Okay, as we walk away from this conference, I do have a call to action from all of you and those who are not here. As you work with those partners that are continuously not coming to the table, and you're going to try to make those relationships, please, I want you all to think about this life philosophy that I hold myself accountable for, and I've been doing it as an adult. Heard this quote when I was doing early childhood development. It said, there's a quote saying, you know, to not know and do nothing about it is forgivable. To know and do something about it is admirable. To know and do nothing about it is unforgivable. So let's do something about it and let's keep trying to get it right. With that, as we continue our journey for whole community inclusion, I challenge you with those start, stop, continue, and change cards. Today, I've got some feedback. Hey, Sadie, this is a lot of information. I have so many notes. I don't expect you to eat all of that sea mist elephant in one bite. I'm asking you to just do at least start one thing, stop something else, continue one thing, and change something. If you could do more, yay, keep doing it. I also would like to remind you to think about the three things that you learned from the conference, 2 ways you're going to apply it, and then one way you're going to share the information. Now, with those 2 ways you're going to apply it, remember that's the plan. You're making the plan. You're going to protect the plan. You're going to make the plan, you're going to work the plan, and you're going to protect the plan. And you keep doing that. That's a continuous improvement process. And then as you keep using it, so you don't lose it, you add more as you can. From our first conference, we tried to do all this captioning. We tried to do all this ASL in one screen. As you see, we've learned through this. This year, we tried to even increase our abilities to have inclusion with visual description. We are trying to do our best, and at least we're taking the risk. Get a little vulnerable, start learning. It's okay to mess up. This is my thought. We learn through our mistakes, and unfortunately, sometimes we have to learn through lives lost, and we need to keep trying to not have a life loss. So as we made our plan here in Colorado, we made a plan, we're working the plan, and we're protecting the plan. We did this through it with our leadership. our leadership in Colorado knew that this was important. And so what they did is the community asked, hey, show me the budget and I'll show you your priorities. Colorado has priorities of whole community inclusion and emergency management. We are in the budget. We challenge other states to do the same as you're trying to reach your whole community. We ask also our locals to think about that as well. Look in your budget, see if you have a budget for whole community inclusion or access and functional needs. And then if it isn't, what are the priorities? So I want to talk about how scratchy yesterday was and today was. You saw how yesterday it was a little bit worse than today and today got better and it was still bad. I call that full scale exercise, right? We all had to be involved in that, but we're all going to learn from it. I will tell you, I don't believe the virtual attendees or the hybrid virtual attendees have experienced what we felt in the room. So it's interesting how access can be still equal. It just feels a little bit different from where you're sitting. But I also want to just remind you, we didn't give up and we're not going to give up. We started with learning these portable loop systems. We started with the conversation with our assistive technology partners. We just keep continuing to grow together. And if we do a plan with versus, I call this, Gabby, the F word, the plan for. It sounds like the 4-letter word, but it's really 3 letters, FOR. And so we always joke that that's the F word. When we start hearing ourselves saying we have a plan for, we challenge ourselves back and ask, then who do we need to plan with? If it's for somebody, we need to learn how to plan with. We want to think about difficulties and wobble with it. I first heard this when somebody was presenting out talking about work-life balance, and I was like, emergency management? And the presenter identified that it's actually an emergency management. We have a work-life wobble. There's times we wobble with it because we don't know when the disaster is going to happen. Every year for the last 2 years, I was getting excited to go into a New Year's Eve party, and somehow we had a fire. And then another time the next year we had our people seeking asylum, people from the other catastrophic event. Sorry, I all of a sudden forgot what it was called, but it's when we were trying to bring in our refugees who were seeking asylum from a law that actually created panic just about from our other countries. And so we had a wobble with that to ensure nobody was left behind. What was it? Oh, sorry. All right. A lot of things that we did today is called universal design. We did it where even if you need it, it's available. If you didn't need it, you didn't need to use it. However, when we're making ramps that are accessible, I believe Director Gilliams talked about that. When we're doing, we're using those motion censored items. When we have a Siri or an Alexa, those are all universal design. We all can benefit from those resources. Try to start thinking about how do we do our emergency management that's universally designed so nobody's left behind. I want to put a big shout out to my other state partners that we continue to work with and continue to grow from, such as our partners from the Arizona State Independent Living Council. They are doing a partners in preparedness workshop that helps people with disabilities prepare for the disruptions tied to disasters. And with that, I'm going to close this with a wonderful quote that I actually had from that I started this conference with. I get inspirational quotes sent to me every morning, and I try to start my day with that attitude of gratitude and also inspirational quote. And the one that started us out on Monday was, it's not easy, or I'm sorry, wrong one. Let me get to the right one. No matter what people tell you, words and ideas can change the world. We've seen that. June Your CMIST resource memory tool is changing the world we're feeling that culture shift here in Colorado. And as we're feeling it, we're sharing it along with all of you all. And so as Sarita Reddy, I was listening to one of the sessions. I'm going to quote her. She said, "It's not easy, but it's very rewarding and it's worth it." Thank you all.
All right, thank you, Sadie. Hey, when I was blessed to take this role as a regional discipline integration specialist back in May of 2015, it was a single person job with no team, 6 states, lots of counties, lots of people to connect with. Look at this room. I thought to myself back then, it's like, I'd like to continue this whole one-man band thing, but I've never been able to conduct myself very well. So partnership, partnership, partnership. This is really what it's all about. I am thrilled to have Sadie and her team, Amy, all of the emergency managers in this state and independent living, all the disability communities members. It's just been awesome. From day one till day now, it's just been growing and growing and growing. And it's been super awesome to see you all do the work. So as you leave here, continue to find out who's missing at the table, who needs to be here, thinking about Xcel Energy, talking about what's their limit, and then expand that. Think outside the box, counties, what are your limits? Think outside the box. States and individuals and organizations. It's just a super awesome thing. We don't have to do this by ourselves. It's better when we do it together. So thank you all for being here this week. Thank you for being welcoming, and it's awesome to work with you all. It's so great.
Just thank you and affirming everything that has been offered as a closing remark so far. Independence is not isolation. It is investing in the possibility that everybody can use the resources, use the lived experience that guides our lives on a regular basis to know, how do we navigate disruptions? How do we navigate the resources that are available to us? There is a reality that for a while you will be on your own. That yo-yo concept from June as well is something we have to be mindful of. And so as a collective whole community effort, the question becomes, how can we turn some of our programming, some of our time and budget, as Sadie reminded us of, and just our intention towards not just operational preparedness, but community preparedness. And how can, as community members, we really remember that though there is coordination that happens in our counties, our cities, our states for emergency management, but sometimes it's one person wearing 3 different hats. We have to contribute to the well-being, to the outcomes of disasters. That's really what whole community preparedness and response means. It's the kind of independence we hope we're cultivating as we promote access and functional needs integration into all of the roles that we play. So as we wind down this conference, I get to give you one last highlight for those in the room that there is more food. As you travel back home, however you do that, if you are joining us virtually, we hope you're attending to that need at the middle of the day as well. But there are going to be sandwiches and wraps that you can either enjoy here before you depart, or they are packed in bags that should be able to be transported with you. But we hope that everyone travels safe and is, blessed by a good springtime light and weather and enjoyment all the way back home. One last time, I'd like to ask everybody in the room and everybody with your reactions on the virtual side of things to thank again the volunteers that helped make this happen in the conference setting, the conference planning committee that put this together, and most especially the team that is sitting right back here and is putting together this learning opportunity for all of us. Just one last time. If you don't know, put it on your calendar, April 10th and 11th next year, but we're going to be at the Great Wolf Lodge in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Save the date. We want to see you back for the conference. And we'll be continuing through our CMIST model probably talking about S, but S covers a lot of ground. So help us start thinking about what you would like to see at that conference. Give us your feedback, give us your questions that haven't gotten answered. And thank you so, so, so much for being amazing participants at this conference. We wish you well. It's so good. It's fun.